Hey there, how you doing? Now, I don't know about you, but I've been feeling quite off in March. Lots of things have kind of passed me by. It feels like I'm trying to do like 8 hours work, and then suddenly it feels like I've only got 3 hours to do it. Just feels like things are kind of unreal, unquantifiable, like I'm getting my quantities wrong somehow. I've also been feeling very, very tired, and not under the weather, but just not quite there. And it's been noticed in our household. In fact, we've all been quite sleepy. All of us wanting to have a lie-in and really wanting to rest and recover. And yet we're not really sure what we're recovering from. Now, I did a live stream a couple of days ago because it kind of reached fever pitch for me. And I just wanted to check in to see who else had been noticing this feeling. Now, I do think when I live streamed a couple of days ago, the moon was, really, really tight to Uranus, and obviously Jupiter and Uranus are coming together. So there's a lot of sort of excitable energy with those. But yeah, I've been puzzling it a little bit deeper. And somebody in the comments actually said, hey, you didn't mention Neptune Cazimi, because obviously that could be playing into it. And so this is what I'm going to be recording this video about, because I actually think, thank you. I can't remember your name off the top of my head, but thank you so much. Because you're right. I really think this is part and parcel of Neptune, because I don't know about you or, where Neptune is in your chart, but Neptune often is very difficult to put your finger on. Neptune by default is kind of unboundaried, and very subtle. The energy of Neptune is super duper subtle. And so as we go through this, I want to sort of really explore what Neptune's about, how it might affect your charts, and then, and also like look at the actual Cazimi details and, how you might use that energy, what you might want to choose to do. And then right at the end in part 2, I'm going to look on a sign by sign basis about the sort of Neptune Cazimi, its relationship to Vesta and the moon at the moment of the Cazimi. And also I'm putting in, thanks to the prompting of somebody else actually, my good friend Alexandra Jowett, who is a really amazing astrologer from Jupiter Returns. We're going to be doing a video at some point in the future, probably like sort of late spring, summer, about Neptune and the Galactic Centre. They are actually in a square. And I'm not going to talk too much about the Galactic Centre, because I really do want to explore this with Alexandra. And it's not something that is going anytime soon. It's a really long, drawn out, slow process, and quite magical as well. But I am putting the Galactic Centre into each of these zodiac readings at the end, so there will be a mention of it, but I'll do a deep dive, literally a deep dive, using the idea of Neptune. And I'll be doing that with my good Piscean friend Alexandra. So anyway, let's first of all consider the nature of the Cazimi, what it is, when it's coming out. Now, I think one of the reasons why, retrospectively, why I've been feeling so really sort of undiagnosed tired, like why have I felt so knackered? Why have I felt so kind of sleepy? I think that's most likely because, at the start of March, Neptune was known as being under the beams. So let's just bring these slides up and see where this is going to lead us. So, with Cazimi's, which is like a direct translation, is being in the heart of the sun. So the Cazimi happens when, any planet comes into an exact conjunction with the sun. Now, when it's in the actual heart of the sun, it's almost like the sun is illuminating that planet, and the energies of that planet seem to take on some kind of magical significance. It really does appear that something really quite special happens when a planet is right at the heart of the sun. But as the planets are getting closer and closer to the sun, they go first of all into like under the rays, under the beams of the sun, and so it varies from planet to planet. I couldn't exactly find when Neptune is considered to go under the beams of the sun, but I've taken it from 15 degrees away. So when Neptune and the sun are 15 degrees away, Neptune starts to go under the beams, under the sort of extended rays of the sun. And so it's not easy for his energy to be completely felt and understood. He's not really being noticed, not being really seen, not being, it's very difficult to articulate a planet because, they're kind of glared out a little bit, and then as they get closer, they go into this place or this state called combustion. When they are just 8 degrees away from the sun, they are known as being combust. And of course, when they're sort of 8 degrees away from the sun, I mean, typically you would say they're in a conjunction with the sun, not, quite a wide conjunction. But of course, when they're that close to the sun, they're really getting burnt out. The sun is absolutely overpowering them. If you think about, like a performance, you might have the lead character or the prom king or queen. The sun is the head of the solar system, is at the heart of the solar system, and so it takes center stage, and so anything around it just gets ignored, gets drowned out. So and then when the planet, in this case Neptune, comes right into the heart of the sun, it's almost like the sun has said, hey Neptune, you needed on stage, it's your turn to take lead role, and I'm gonna it's like the sun gives Neptune some glamour and something so much stronger. So it's almost like Neptune, his energy is transmitted so much more strongly. And then as they start to separate, so in this case, it's the sun that's moving on because, in fact, it's not Neptune coming into the sun, it's actually the sun coming into Neptune, joining Neptune and then clearing off because the sun is moving faster. After this moment, when they're exact, they start to separate. Now, I just want to be really, really specific because they're said to be in a Cazimi, when they are in quite an exact conjunction and you'll see here it's 0 degrees, but 17 minutes of arc, which is a tiny, difference between the position of the sun and Neptune. And so effectively, Neptune is in a Cazimi position for a total of 0.34 minutes of arc in terms of the actual space between them. And then the exact point in the middle where there's absolutely no difference from the position that they're in, as we look at it astrologically across the ecliptic, the exact point is here. So, so if we apply all of this to March and right the way through until when it ends, Neptune is under the beams, went under the beams from the 1st of March. And then on the 9th, got combust. And then tomorrow, which I'm recording this on the 16th of March, on the 17th of March, Neptune is going to be in his Cazimi and this is London time. And please forgive me, I've put in, like a digital clock time, like a 24-hour clock, but I've also put AM next to it or PM next to it. Now, obviously, I know I can read a 24-hour clock, but it's just to make it really, really obvious, I'm talking about the morning or the afternoon. Not everybody uses exactly the same way of writing time. So just to make it super duper clear. So from London time zone, which is where I'm based in Portugal. That is in the same time zone as London, UK. So the Cazimi starts at 4:16 a.m. and goes right the way through on the 17th until 18:28 p.m. And so And so in total, I just had to stop the video there to count on my hands how many hours was going to go by. But yeah, the Cazimi is essentially taking place for a total of 9 hours. And the exact point is at 11:22 a.m. So I just needed to stop the video there because I needed to work out on my fingers how many hours Neptune was actually going to be in a Cazimi for. And the funny thing is, I worked it out and then carried on recording and then realized I'd worked it out incorrectly. So, I'm really not like functioning properly at the moment. I've worked it out a second time, and the Cazimi is taking place for a total of 14 hours, from 4, 16, 18. And that's really easy to work out, actually. I don't even know why I used my fingers. I'm obviously just like I said, really sleepy right now. It's so obvious. Now, the midpoint in the middle is at 11:22 a.m. So if effectively, it starts 7 hours before it gets exact, and then it goes on for another 7 hours the other side. So I've put down here a few different time zones, or not time zones, but cities in time zones. So for instance, if you're in California, the exact time of the Cazimi is at 4:22 a.m. And Sydney, it's 22:22 p.m., so like 10:22 p.m. So you can work it out what's 7 hours before and what's 7 hours after, and that gives you the full kind of spectrum of your Cazimi. Now, during this time, we are likely to be using the energy of Neptune so much more eloquently. It's almost like there's this kind of stroke of genius when it comes to all things Neptunian. Now, what I will say, because knowing how it's felt, from March, and then how the increasing tiredness and the sort of increasing kind of almost confusion has happened, and this kind of just feeling of I'm really not quite sure what's going on with my energy levels. You might also just maybe for the rest of the month, in fact, just give yourself a bit of a break. So if you are feeling a bit fuzzy headed, a little bit confused, not like you're functioning on everything, like, if everything's falling by the wayside, you haven't got much, va-va-voom, then, you'll know it's probably just the sort of ending sort of, it's the other side of the combustion and the under the beams. Now, this is mainly going on until the 24th, 25th, which the 25th is, well, let's say the 20th is when we go into the spring equinox or the March equinox. Or the vernal equinox, as it's also known. So that's when we go into spring officially. And then on the 25th, we've got the penumbral lunar eclipse, where there is a full moon in the sign of Libra, and it's eclipsed. And it's, there's a lot of astrology going on with that. And then that's taking us right the way through to the 2nd of April. So, yeah, I think you need to be quite forgiving with yourself, give yourself a lot of rest. Don't take this as a sign that you're failing or getting ill or anything like that. Obviously I'm not a doctor, so I'm not diagnosing, but yeah, just be gentle with yourself is what I would say. So I hope that's helpful, just to understand these times and why you might have been feeling so knackered leading up to this point. Now, obviously, if you want to find this in your own time zone, you can do. And I recommend this actually, because I think the more we use these brilliant sites, most likely the more capabilities they'll give us. But I also really strongly believe that astrology is for sharing. It's very easy for us all to talk in jargon and just say, listen to me, that's all you need to do. But actually, I think really what needs to happen right now is that the wonderful and fantastic tool of astrology can be shared in such a way that everybody can understand it or start to piece together how to use it. And this is where astroseek.com comes in really handy. It's just one of, well, there's a few different sites that I use quite a lot, but this is my favorite at the moment. So if you go www.astro-seek.com, then go to Astro Tools, there it is, right the way down to planetary cycles. And then if you click that, you'll get Cazimi and Combust planets. click that, and it'll give you this amazing little search function where you can look for Cazimi planets. There's a drop down menu. You can select the planet you want, and then it allows you to check how far away that planet is from the sun. So for instance, if you put in 0.17 degrees, it will show you when the planet is Cazimi. If you want to go from 8 degrees, it will show when it's Combust, and so on and so forth. So it's really quite helpful, and it does give you some prompts as well. Now, one of the things that I do want to touch on with this one, because it is quite special, and that is that this is the second to last one that we're getting in the sign of Pisces. Now, you might say, oh, well, what makes that special? Well, first of all, Neptune's been going through his sign for 13.9 years. He's coming to the end of it. So he's been there sort of like 12.9 years. You know, Neptune moves really super slow. And so it takes 163.9 years for Neptune to go all the way around the ecliptic, all the way around the zodiac. And you'll see, you know, he's obviously got a bit of an elliptical orbit, because, you know, for some star signs, he is there for like 13.9 years, others 13.4, 13.5, but it's a slow, slightly elliptic cycle. Now, like I said, you know, his time in Pisces started in April 2011, and he's going right the way through to March of 2025, when he starts to go into the sign of Aries, or literally ingresses, that's the term we use. He will be at 0 degrees in the sign of Aries. He then comes out, then goes back in again in October, and then finally makes his final approach into Aries on January the 26th, 2026. But what makes this kind of interesting to me is the fact that Neptune is, like, if Neptune was to rule a star sign, he's a joint ruler of the sign of Pisces. So he's actually in his own sign right now. So everything Neptune is just absolutely so much more Neptunian, and has been since 2011. You know, I really think Neptune has had a lot to do with social media and the spread of it, and how amorphous and tricky and addictive it is. And you'll realize, well, I mean, I'll talk a lot more about Neptune in a second, but, you know, social media really started, I think, when Neptune was in the sign of Aquarius, and there are obviously other sort of planets that sort of lead into this, but, you know, from 2011 Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces, and, you know, it has a natural resonance with the sign of Pisces. It has a natural resonance with the 12th house, which is very much about our unconscious mind. And so there has been almost an era or an epoch of us communicating in a very unboundaried way. You know, because Pisces is quite unboundaried. The 12th house, it's the unconscious mind, it's the Akashic records, it's pretty much everything that breaks down. You know, it doesn't necessarily have form. If you imagine the 12th house or the sign of Pisces, or even Neptune, I mean, they are all three different things, but they have a resonance. And one of the shared resonances they have is for, like, the idea of the ocean, or how do you find a needle in a haystack? How do you find or pinpoint something in a vast ocean of feelings and emotions and psychic energy? It's vast and it's deep and it's confusing at times. And so I really think Neptune going through Pisces has had a lot to do with that. But anyway, so this is the second to last Cazimi. It's happening at 27 degrees in the sign of Pisces. So, you know, when we look at the qualities of Neptune and what's going to be enhanced with this Cazimi, it has a real Piscean flavor. And the following one, which is happening on the 19th of March, 2025, literally just a year later, is at 29 degrees in the sign of Pisces. Now, if you've heard of the anuretic degree, it's said that, you know, when a planet is clearly like at 0 degrees, it's got the flavor of that energy, so when Neptune's in the sign of Aries, he's definitely in the sign of Aries. When Neptune's in the sign of Pisces, he's definitely in the sign of Pisces. But the 29th degree, it's almost like the planet is breaking down a little bit, or how the planet behaves in that particular sign of the zodiac appears erratic or different or changed. If you follow things like the progressed moon changes sign or house, definitely changes sign around about every 2.5 years in your birth chart. And at some point, that progressed moon will go on your 29th degree of a particular zodiac sign in your birth chart every 2.5 years. And so it represents a time when things are slightly chaotic, slightly different, where your emotions are really, really heightened, because it's like this breaking down of energy. And if you think of the moon as being, a representative of the psyche and our emotions and what we can cope with, it's like every 2.5 years, there is this kind of frantic time for us where we're not quite sort of easy and reasonable with ourselves. So having Neptune, which also has a really hang on a second. Hello.
Mom, well, who are we supposed to go to if we need something?
Whew. Sorry, that was one of them. That was my youngest busting into the office. Yeah, so if you think like Neptune has a lot to do with our spirituality and our consciousness and our psychic abilities and stuff like that, when Neptune goes into that 29th degree, and it's kind of breaking down in the sign of Pisces, and like the 29th degree of Pisces is literally the very last degree of the Western tropical zodiac, or the way we see it, Yeah, so if we consider that Neptune has some similarity to the moon in as much as it can show our spirituality, our psychic ability, our sensitivity. Sensitivity is one of those keywords that the moon and Neptune both really share. If Neptune is at this 29th degree in the sign of Pisces, which is the last degree of the ecliptic, because thereafter it goes into Aries, 0 degrees Aries, is starting a whole new story. So there's a really big breaking down of everything psychic, everything emotional, and all the other Neptune themes I'm going to talk about in just a sec. But yeah, there's going to be a kind of shift. So I really do see that this particular Cazimi is kind of Neptunian, Piscean, and it's going to be really pulling hard and fast on all of those themes. And yet this one next year is a bit of a wild card, I would say. So, and then thereafter, it's from 2026, March 22nd, 2026, it's going to be in the sign of Aries, right in the 1st degree. So, this Neptune Cazimi is offering us a snapshot of how things are breaking down and how things are ending. And we will be starting a new Neptunian cycle from 2026. Now, it seems a long way off, but the Cazimi energy is really to give us I think it's to give us a little glimpse at divinity. It's giving us a glimpse at something really, really special. So before I actually explore the energies of Neptune, I just want to quickly put a shout out and say thank you to all the people that support this channel. Really love you and appreciate you. It's amazing how you're doing this for me. And, I want to thank you on behalf of everyone else as well. So thanks. So let's have a look at this particular Neptune Cazimi this year, 2024. This is the chart for it. And you can see up here, Neptune's at 2722, so's the sun. it's not really making that many aspects. You know, it doesn't appear to be sort of heavily connected to everything else. And obviously I've set this chart for London. You know, for the moment it happened in London. So obviously I'm not actually going to talk about the ascendant or midheaven and whatnot, because, you know, it will be different wherever you are. But what I do want to talk about is the aspects it's making. So for instance, at that exact time, Neptune and the Sun, or Neptune Cazimi, is in a fairly tight square with the moon. The moon has literally just maybe 20 minutes beforehand gone into the sign of Cancer from Gemini. That's great, actually, because I always think, you know, just before the moon goes into a new sign, it often goes into a position called void of course. Now, I won't talk about it here, but I will do a video about it at some point. I think I might have actually in the past, but the moon is always so much more powerful when it's just gone into a new sign. You know, it really gets back up to speed again. So we've got quite an active moon and a very watery moon. So there's definitely a water theme here. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you normally think, well, they're all in water signs, they're going to be in a trine position, but you know, the Sun and Neptune here are right at the end of Pisces, almost at the start of Aries, and the moon is right at the start of Cancer. So they are in a square. Neptune and the Sun are also in a square to Vesta. Now, I don't normally put Vesta in or talk about her particularly, but I do like to use Vesta with all my clients. So Vesta is the goddess of the hearth. She's also known as Hestia, I think, if you're into Greek mythology. But, you know, she is about the hearth, the warmth. I think of her as a very sort of sacral, rooty chakra type energy, because she knows her truth. She really, really knows her truth. And she's looking for that purity. Purity is a really, really strong, you know, a strong concept for Vesta. You know, if you think of the Vestal virgins, you know, who were, I think, these virgins who were kept absolutely pure so that they could, their ability to know the truth and to see the truth, it could really, really come out. A bit like in Minority Report, when they've got their, I don't know what they're called, those poor little women, kind of kept in a pool of water. Were they the seers or something like that? You know, isn't it weird what happens to psychic people? How they get treated by humanity? It's awful. But the idea of keeping the seers, the oracles, keeping them pure away from the rest of humanity so that they can really see things purely without any kind of influence or without any kind of suggestions from the outer world. So Vesta is this, you know, point in our chart where, you know, wherever Vesta is in your birth chart, it will show where you absolutely want things to be crystal clear, really pure, really true. It's where your integrity is, and it's where you get absolutely fired up if something's not quite right. So it can be very, very clarifying, and it can burn away the untruths. It can really help you see yourself. And then the moon in a conjunction with Vesta, I think is there's a lot of emotional energy to finding your truth, you know. So this Cazimi, you know, has a theme, a very strong Neptune theme, but a very strong theme about truth and knowing your truth, like really knowing it, really feeling it. Because Vesta here in the sign of Gemini is almost like us fact finding, you know, because Gemini prefers, I'm not going to say Gemini isn't very intuitive, but Gemini prefers rational thought. You know, Gemini prefers to make connections once it's seen facts and bits of paper written down, and you know, all these different things. You know, they will read books, they will communicate with each other, they'll you know, they're not necessarily having a gut reaction about things. But the moon in the sign of Cancer really has a gut reaction, has a very, very strong, a strong reaction to what's going on. But the moon in Cancer is not impartial. It's absolutely personal. So it's interesting. You know, I really think that this this coupling of the moon and Vesta right in between Gemini and Cancer is really saying, you know, we do have personal emotions going on right now. We definitely have something very personal, very sensitive to us going on. And yet we also have this desire to really know something and get to the truth. And actually that is overcoming us. It's almost overtaking our need for things to be personal. So I see this as almost like a looking glass or a crystal ball opening up, you know, that we could actually peer in through the veils. And it's interesting, I've used the word veils because, you know, Neptune is very veil-like. We get to see into another reality. So I really think that this aspect here is giving us the idea or giving us the ability to see into another realm in another way. Now, Neptune is also sextile Pluto. That's a given because Neptune, my whole life has been in a sextile to Pluto. And I don't know when they actually come out of their sextile, whether I'll be dead or not. Obviously, I don't know when I'm going to die, but they've been in a sextile for a really long time. And it's because they just both move super duper slow. And so it takes ages for them to go into any kind of aspect. However, that's not to say that the sun is, you know, always in a sextile to Pluto, because it isn't. You know, the sun represents our personality and our, and at some level, a bit of vitality. You know, it's who we are. It's our persona. And so the sun is in a sextile to Pluto. And that's giving us this kind of very sort of transforming frame of mind, you know, where we actually do want to, I don't know, maybe we're ready to change a little bit. We're ready to invite in some of the energies of what's going on right now. Maybe inviting the energy sounds a bit weird and dangerous. But what I mean is, you know, we might be open to the possibility that new information or a new vision that comes up. It's almost like a vision quest, isn't it? This energy. So we might actually be ready for a new vision. And allow this vision to transform us. And then we've got a couple of semi-aspects. So the Cazimi is also in a semi-sextile to Mars, which is great. It's giving us a little bit more strength than we've had recently. And it's in a semi-square to Jupiter. It's interesting, actually, because Jupiter is the co-ruler of Pisces. So, you know, Jupiter and Neptune have a bit of a resonance. You know, they are brothers in mythology. Jupiter saved Neptune. So, you know, they get on quite well. The semi-square is a level of frustration. It's not like really terrible frustration, but it, you know, there is this sense that, yes, we're kind of looking into things. We're sort of examining things and kind of tuning into things. And Jupiter's like, why can't you always feel this anyway? You know, Jupiter's just telling it like it is. And Jupiter's kind of sort of expansive and saying, well, you know, maybe if you were more in the world, you would know this anyway, you know. So Jupiter's a little bit antagonistic. And, you know, to be fair, Jupiter is also in quite a sort of channeling frame of mind in his advancing conjunction to Uranus. So isn't it funny? You know, we've got all these indicators that, you know, we're all coming into this very intuitive time. And I've just put in a couple of keywords. You know, we're super tuned in, heightened senses, forgiveness and compassion are important, and it's kind of otherworldly. But look, let's have a look a little bit more about Neptune. So I've said he's traditionally the ruler of the 12th house, and he has rulership over Pisces, joint rulership with Jupiter. Now, I said he was the brother of Jupiter, but let's kind of take it a little step back. So if we look at the a sort of potted version of Greek and Roman mythology, and obviously they are two different traditions, but they have some very similar characters. So Uranus and Gaia, you know, they are like the creators. So like Gaia, or there is an energy behind that, but you know, Gaia came around. Gaia is the earth and everything on the earth, and Uranus was the father sky. So you have Mother Earth and Father Sky. And from their interactions, they gave birth to the Titans. Now, one of those was Saturn. and also known as Kronos. Now, Saturn first of all, Saturn did something quite, I think, a bit unforgivable to do to your dad. He castrated Uranus because Gaia was starting to get a little fed up with him, and so Kronos, or Saturn, decided to cut his dad's balls off, which I think would have been really awful. And all sorts of stuff happened, as does happen with all these tragedies and stories, these big stories. But Kronos, or Saturn, he married Ops, also known as Rhea, I believe, and they had children. But he had heard that one of his children was going to kill him or usurp him in power, and so every time she had a baby, she would take her lovely child to Saturn and say, "Here you go, look, we've got a lovely new baby," and he would eat it. And as she was giving birth to her 6th child, she decided to hide the child in some caves. She had some nymphs or something looking after him. It was Jupiter, by the way. And she wrapped a large stone in swaddling cloth and said, "Here you go, Saturn, here's your child," and he swallowed the stone. So, many years passed. Jupiter grew up, found out who his dad was. Later, I think used something poisonous, to trick him into vomiting out all of his siblings. I can't remember the exact details of that, and obviously I wasn't there, and it may never have happened, just to say. But he's got 2 brothers. He's got Pluto, Neptune, and there's Jupiter. And then there's Ceres, Vesta, who I've already mentioned, and also Juno. So there's these 6 siblings, and Jupiter has rescued all of them. And what happens is, Saturn loses his power, and Jupiter takes over the ruling of the sky. So he's not exactly heavens like Uranus, but Jupiter and Uranus, they do have a similar story there. They are very expanded and quite changeable. And Jupiter, or Zeus, also known as Thor, can wield a bit of a thunderbolt as well. So there are some similarities to lots of different stories. So Jupiter's looking after the sky. Ceres gets the ground, like the earth side. Pluto gets the underworld, and Neptune gets the seas and the oceans. Now, he's also known as Poseidon. Now, Poseidon is really, really associated. Poseidon's the Greek version, and Poseidon is absolutely about the oceans. Whereas Neptune, you also hear that, wells, springs, lakes, rivers, all water on land is under his dominion. And so he's watery, and of course, if you look at the nature of water, it's unboundaried. He married a goddess called Salicea, which kind of gives you a little bit of a clue. Sal, is salt, so she's the goddess of salty water. Now, wherever Neptune shows up in your chart, I think Neptune, he's an outer planet, so he's kind of transcendent. The inner planets, the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, are the ones that really talk to our personality and our character. They really bring forth who we are, and we've got Jupiter and Saturn after, and Jupiter and Saturn are kind of intermediary planets that are like messenger planets from your personal inner planets right the way through to the transcendent ones on the outside. So that's Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. And also Chiron dances in between the transcendent and the messengers. So, Neptune is very transcendent, and it, as such, is a consciousness that's very difficult to pin down and understand. And so he's understandable when he touches one or many of your personal planets, or if he's on an angle, you really feel him. And when he's traveling around, and if he touches one of your planets, like if he transits over in a conjunction or in an opposition or in a square to something, you're going to feel it. But if we didn't have our inner planets, we wouldn't really get to experience the energy of Neptune. So I've broken it down because I think it means so many different things, Neptune energy. And I think often we are born really open with our sort of open Neptunian nature, very innocent, very kind of tuned in, very psychically attuned. You know, we are fresh from the mystery. And I think that's beautiful. You know, like a newborn, it's almost like they're half here and half there. And every time they go to sleep, when they wake up, they're like, wow, it's, you know, they are fresh from the mystery. And, you know, at some level, and it varies as to how quick it happens in our society, but our children become children of the earth, really, or the world. And we put our expectations on them, our routines on them, our food, you know, everything gets controlled around them, and Neptune's just not controlled. And so we really lose touch with that sort of inner sensitivity, the inner water, the inner psychic energy that we've got, and the creativity that comes from it. And so we often suffer from our Neptunian placements earlier on in our life. And it's only as we learn to free ourselves up again and to make our own decisions and to work on our creativity that energy really starts to flow again. And so, you know, Neptune is a story often told in two parts. It's like before you get conscious to it, and when you're kind of ruining your life with some of the less desirable behaviors of Neptune. And then there's the other side where you're starting to work with it really, really well. And for many people, actually, we're doing a bit of both. And that's actually pretty good. So it's on a psychological basis, you know, wherever Neptune is in your chart is unboundaried. You know, we don't have secure boundaries. And so it's almost like we're porous. We can absolutely soak up any energies in any room, but we don't necessarily know where they came from. And we don't necessarily feel empowered to keep those energies out. You know, we don't even realize that we're unboundaried. That's the real travesty. Is, you know, with a very strong Neptune in your chart, you don't realize that you're open and vulnerable. It's just who you are. It can bring up a lack of certainty. And if you have a lot of doubts in your life, the chances are there's something negatively Neptunian going on in your chart that can be, I don't know, maybe made more watertight, you know, with a little bit of self-realization. You know, with some different techniques, we can start to work through our doubts. But doubts is, I think, a very Neptunian thing. We can lack that sort of life force because, again, we're kind of here, there, and everywhere, you know, rather than very much in our body and very vigorous, you know, so we can lack vigor. And people in a sort of slightly open and possibly negative Neptunian state can be very easily discouraged and also quite disoriented. Now, in terms of creativity, I see that as being one of the easier parts of Neptune because, you know, you're using your Neptunian energy. And so I see deeply, deeply creative people who find it really easy to be creative, have great Neptune. So musicians have very strong Neptunes usually, and as do artists and performers, actors and stuff. You know, and one of the hallmarks of the way they're creative is they're quite fluid and dreamy. You know, we're creating illusions with our creativity, you know, like with our music and our painting and stuff. It's very subtle creativity. There's a lot of attraction and glamour with Neptune as well. So for instance, if you think Hollywood and like film and media and stuff, it can be really like idols and things like that can be created. It's a mysterious, illusionary thing. It's not real, you know. And things can be sewn into our consciousness, you know. If we're very unboundaried, you know, these sort of attractions and glamours can come up. It's very veil-like, you know. So, you know, some people might be very creative and see through the veils and bring through these ideas, you know, how people have these sudden sort of images or music and stuff that they hear, and then they kind of go and create it and manifest it. It's very strong in the charts of people who are very sort of spiritually motivated or who have a very strong spiritual or psychic suite of skills. So you get a lot of psychic energy, compassion, forgiveness is very helpful. People who can lead trance or lead people into trance, or also go into trance, it creates an altered state, heightened awareness. The sort of activities would be yoga, and anything water-based, anything that's kind of slow but powerful on a subtle level, and it's very meditative. So you get a lot of seers and channels and things like that have the sort of spiritual upgradement from Neptune. Now, this is one of the ones that we often fall foul of earlier in our lives if we're not comfortable with ourselves and we have difficulty articulating who we are. We often try to excite ourselves so we kind of forget who we are, and it ceases to be a problem. And so things like being overly sexual, cheating, like nymphomania, I guess, is overly sexual, isn't it? Anything that we might create guilt or shame for ourselves and create a big old production for ourselves is part of the trickery and addiction. We get addicted to these patterns where we're not really being truthful. So deceit comes into there, and we're kind of lying to ourselves. So I think we all know people like that, and we probably know how we've been like that. There's probably been times, if we were all honest about it, where we've lied to ourselves. We've been less sure about something, and we've gone into a situation with a false sense of security, and then we might have to have blustered and lied our way out of it. In terms of health, and I see this a lot with people with weird allergies that seem to come from nowhere, and mysterious health issues, especially to do with being tired, not having any energy, and the sort of rash of autoimmune disorders that people talk about seem to have a really strong resonance with Neptune, and also Ceres in terms of allergies. But I really do notice that anything that could be sort of like depressive, maybe starting in the mind and then manifesting in the body, often have a bit of a Neptune theme to it. So if I was to sum this up, I would say it's like a scale, or like a spectrum of how well you know yourself and how comfortable you are. Like at its highest expression, through your body, you are creating, you're opening yourself up to creativity and a higher harmonic of love. He's also known as the higher harmonic of Venus. So you're connecting yourself to the possibilities of spiritual evolution, spiritual oneness, connection, that sort of absolute peace. You become an inner guru. You become absolutely transcended at some level, and so you immerse yourself in the oneness and feel so great and amazing. And the other end of it, which is it's where we are not comfortable being ourselves and we try and forget. So forgetfulness, forgetfulness, like anything mental where we're a bit fuzzy is a real sort of Neptune theme. So we'll do anything we can to get out of ourselves. Again, we're trying to get out of our boundaries. They're real Neptune things. So we're either losing ourselves or kind of expanding out of ourselves somehow with Neptune. So it's very, very tricky to put your finger on. I'm going to share a few examples of different charts, and then I'll talk on a sign by sign basis as to how you might want to use this energy to get clarity and to get that sense of insight and that sense of knowing, so you don't have to lose yourself or immerse yourself. So that if in the run up to this you felt quite fuzzy, a little bit confused, not knowing why you don't feel like you're at perfect health, and you're slightly tired and sleepy, why is that happening? And then there's this like great spot in the middle where there's this amazing opportunity to have some great insight. So let's just have a look at these quick charts. So yeah, I would ask, how do you use it in your chart? Like, where is it? What's it doing? I've put my chart in because the very tightest aspect that I have in my chart is a conjunction between Neptune and the North Node. So for me, it's a bit of kind of a struggle actually, because the North Node is, very much about our destiny and our direction. And for me, Neptune has absolutely had something to do with it. If you think about spirituality, channeling, psychic energy and things like that, I've always been involved in these kinds of things. Now, I've also got Neptune in a conjunction with Mars and in a tight square with my moon, Ceres, and Jupiter in Pisces. So it's definitely playing on some very strong themes for me. Squares to personal planets and also conjunctions and also the oppositions, any of these tight things, they really give us a challenge so that we get clearer about who we are. And so for me, I really like to work in a way, when I'm working with people, I like to be as straightforward as I can. I like some clarity, because with all this Neptune, sometimes I feel like I might disappear, like I might not know where I'm going to be. So yeah, it's interesting to see where it is in your chart. Now, right now, Neptune is exactly square my sun as well, and it has been for a while. It's right there at the moment, and that can sometimes coincide with a deconstruction of your identity, where you're realizing that who you thought you were, you're actually quite different now. You're evolving, you're changing. So it's worth looking at where he is in your chart and also where he is now. Now, this is a chart of somebody who I've known for a long time, who is really deeply spiritual, really musical, musical, mainly artistic, I would say, is a beautiful artist, and is somebody who just seems to flow with this kind of feminine energy, a sort of beautiful, gracious nature. It's got some really beautiful Neptunian aspects. And here, like, Neptune is right at the top of the chart. I've seen this in a lot of charts of healers, but mainly artists and musicians, people who are performing with their art, people who are at one with their art. So they're merging. How I said Neptune is about the sort of urge to merge. It's like they're merging with their careers. They are their careers. They are these artists first and people later. And then this lovely artist friend has also a very strong trine to the moon as well, and other aspects. So, Neptune is really playing strongly in their chart. Now, here's another person's chart. Somebody I know. I have a lot of clients who are born from the mid to late 60s. And I think one of the reasons being with that is in the mid 60s, there's this Pluto and Uranus conjunction, and also a Saturn and Chiron conjunction in opposition. And like from 64, 65, 66, 67, that sort of formation was really leading in their charts. Now, for these people who also have, let's say, Pisces ascendant, it could be quite difficult, because these conjunctions in Pisces are in the latter degrees of Pisces and also in the mid to late degrees of Virgo, according to when they were born. And so at some level, in recent years, Neptune has been making a conjunction to Saturn and Chiron, and an opposition a bit earlier probably to Pluto and Uranus. So this generation have absolutely gone through so many fundamental changes, and because it's Neptune that's been going over them, they've not necessarily been able to put their finger on why they were changing or how they were changing. It almost seemed a bit nebulous. It's kind of a bit, wow, like, how has that happened? How people can get gaslit, like a negative Neptunian trait would be to be the gaslighter, but it would also be to be the gaslightee, the person that becomes confused and doubtful about themselves. So where you've got a strong Neptune, you can do both, absolutely, which is why I think a lot of, I think they're kind of not interchangeable, because some people definitely favor being, slightly victimized, and some people definitely favor being slightly more dominant and possibly harmful. I think what makes the real difference, and it was a great definition that I got from a friend who works in like coaching people who've been gaslit. She says that the real definition as to whether you're a gaslighter or not is whether you're even open to creating harm or not. So most people who say, oh, I wonder if I could be a gaslighter, I wonder where I've gaslit. She said, you've got so much consciousness that you definitely aren't doing it. Or if you do it, you will then later admit to it. But the real like proper narcissists out there will never question whether they're a narcissist or not. And that's her, I think, her personal definition, but also one that's been used in clinical practice, I think. Anyway, I digress. So, this very deep and strong Pisces energy that's been activated by Neptune in recent years over these parts, most likely they have come across people who have tried to victimize themselves, because Pluto's involved, Uranus is involved, Saturn and Chiron's involved as well. So, Neptune takes on so much more relevance when you look at your chart and you can see what's going on. Now, the great thing is, for people born in the 60s and the late 60s, Neptune will also have been making a trine to their Neptune, which is also quite beneficial. So they come into their power with their creativity. They're less worried about what they're achieving and more concerned about using their skills and tuning into who they really are. So, even these difficult times also have a real positive to them. But, even if you're not born in the late 60s, if you have like your ascendant, descendant, midheaven, or IC right at the bottom, if any of your angles are in one of the late mutable signs, so we're talking Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, if you've got an angle in one of these, right, in the last 10 degrees of those signs, so from 20 degrees to 29 degrees, the chances are you would have had Neptune going over one of your angles very recently. And that usually comes about with a sense of confusion, because his energy creates so much space, and like an unboundaried creative potential. So, I think with Neptune, our biggest gift is to know that we want to be creative and to seek clarity and to be open for clarity and open for divinity. Because ultimately, if you think unboundaried creativity, well, that takes you to the source. That takes you to, that takes you to the source of life. That takes you right deep into the mystery of life. So I think it's quite good. Now, I'm coming to a stage now where I'm going to start the updates. Now, each of these updates, I'm doing it from the perspective of your ascendant. So if you know your ascendant, watch that particular forecast, and that will give you an idea on how the Cazimi might be showing up for you. A couple of other factors that you might want to factor in terms of what you can get really clear about, what you can have a real, what you can really perceive, what could really change your reality, how your reality might be changing, how you can perceive your own divinity. So this is much more of a spiritual reading than some of the other forecasts. Now, if you happen to know your birth chart, don't necessarily follow your ascendant, but follow, you'll be able to work it out for yourself. But if you know where Neptune is Cazimi, which house is it in a Cazimi with, then look for the appropriate ascendant, and you'll be able to work from there. But if you're new to astrology or unsure, I would just go with your ascendant sign. Now, if you don't know your ascendant, if you just go to astro-seek.com, go to free horoscopes, down to ascendant rising sign calculator, you need your time, place, and date of birth, press enter, boom, there it is. So let's move on to the readings. Now, in these readings, just so you know, I'm looking at the point of the Cazimi in your chart. I'm also looking at where Vesta is and the moon, and that kind of interesting little square. And then I've also put in the Galactic Centre. Now, I did mention it right at the start. I'm not putting too much emphasis on it because, like I said, I am going to do a lovely deep dive with my friend Alexandra Jowett about Neptune and the Galactic Centre, but I am giving you a little bit of a nudge. So let's start these forecasts now then. Hey Aries Ascendant, how you doing? So with this Cazimi, which is lasting 14 hours in total, or just over 14 hours, this particular event is opening a window or opening a kind of psychic looking glass into your 12th house. Now, as you might know already, the 12th house is often a house that gets overlooked because it's not one that we're necessarily conscious of. If you think, this is your rising sign and this is really what you're really aware of because it's in your body. And, as we go through all the houses, they're very easy to define and get clear on. And then this is the last house. And this is where all of our patterns, all our thoughts, our belief systems, which have been captured our whole life, they're all kept there. But it's also, as your personality kind of breaks down, the 12th house is almost like a little death. It's the death of the ego. It's the place where your unconscious mind comes alive and your conscious awareness goes to sleep. So what's going on with Neptune here is that there is this window opening up into how things really are for you. You could say that the 12th house is a bit like a blind spot, that part that we don't really get to see very often. It's a source of inspiration, a source of like finding out about the mystery of who you really are. And so with this Cazimi, if I was in your shoes, I might choose to do some deep diving into the unseen world, or the unseen, unrecognized, unendorsed parts of your personality, the parts of your personality that you probably ignore a lot, the sort of blind spots. And so I don't know what's going on necessarily for you right now in terms of the way you're living, in terms of your relationships, your home, and this, that, and the other. But you've got this window of opportunity to get some real insight into what's really going on. What are you hiding from yourself? And you can get very, very clear on that. Now, what is also adding into this? So Vesta is really asking you to be completely truthful and completely upfront. And she is really showing up in your 3rd house. So she is there helping you see the truth through your friends, through your local community, through all the activities you do. So any hunches and intuitive ideas that come up via your community and the people that you are in touch with on a day-to-day basis, and also anything that you're actively learning right now in a school or a college or anything like that, any kind of qualification you're doing, there is some truth there. There is some truth for you. And it's almost like a cosmic clue is just being put in place. So, and you know what, it might show up even as a friend in your 3rd house, or a sibling in your 3rd house, where siblings definitely show up in this part of your chart, who is absolutely fired up with intensity and a sense of truth, or they know what is right for them. So you might also pay attention to some of these people who appear to know what is true for them. But again, you have to put it through your own sense of perception, and it won't necessarily be easy because these squares can challenge us, but it is bringing you to action. I really think you can solve something for yourself with this Cazimi, like solving the mystery of who you are. Now, the moon here is very much in your 4th house, and it's a place where it's very highly personalized. And the moon in the sign of Cancer is really bringing to your awareness that yes, there are some things that you need to know about now, because if you don't find out these things that you really want to know, it could affect how things are for you at home. So again, there's another sort of prompt to deep dive and to kind of go on almost like a shamanic journey with yourself, which I think actually sounds quite great. Now, this point up here in the 9th house, the Galactic Centre. And like I said earlier in this video, you know, I'll be talking about this in a much, much deeper level with Alexandra Jowett, a really great astrologer that I sometimes work with. But the Galactic Centre is supposedly the centre of the universe, you know, the centre of where everything has originated from. Now, some people might call it God consciousness or divinity. Entirely up to you how you think about it. But this particular spot in your chart is showing up in the 9th house. It's almost like God consciousness wants you to expand. It's urging you to expand. It's urging you. It's kind of knocking on your door and saying, hello, Aries ascendant, are you there? I've got a message for you. So this Cazimi energy, I mean, these guys aren't going anywhere. Like the Galactic Centre is showing up in your chart. It's going to be there the whole of your life, always trying to like get you to perceive that there is something much greater out there and that you can almost tap into it. And Neptune is going to be here for another couple of years, still playing on these themes. However, it's like you have this opening to really realize what is going on behind the scenes. So with you, Aries ascendant, I think, you know, you are diving into the mystery of you. You know, for instance, if you're wanting to know why you're not as intuitive as you want to be, the answer will be there. If you're wanting to find an answer to a question you daren't ask yourself, the answer will be there if you dare ask yourself that question. You know, if you wanted to practice something intuitive, this would really be enhanced at this time. So I really think you can take this energy anywhere where there is an active mystery playing out in your life. And also you can take it to any part of your life that is in a state of flux or breaking down. You know, the 12th house is the place where things are changing and transforming and kind of giving way to something new to be born. So I hope that's helpful to you, Aries ascendant, in kind of understanding some of this energy and the dynamic in how it's playing out in your chart. Anyway, lots and lots of love to you, and speak to you another time. Bye for now. So Taurus ascendant then, you know, where is this Neptune Cazimi, this 14-hour event, where is it playing out in your charts? Well, it's playing out right at the tail end of the 11th house. And I think the 11th house is very much about understanding our responsibility in many ways to a global vision or to the global brotherhood, sisterhood. It's very much about everyone that we are connected to. Even if we don't know their names or their faces, just that sense that we're part of a global community. So anywhere where you're really wanting to express and expand and get clearer and more creative about the world and everyone that lives in it. And also, I should say the 11th house to me, if you think the 5th house is very much about what you're creating, the 11th is what you're co-creating. So it's not necessarily just about the global community. That's just one version of it. You know, on a sort of mundane level in terms of your businesses and how you network those, you could have a really great level of awareness and creativity. You might come up with a great idea as to how you can connect even more deeply and even more psychically with the people you're connected with. Now, if you wanted to use the co-creative energy, I think of the 11th house as being the house of the law of attraction. I really do, because it's the 5th house, what you're creating, but you're kind of using divine energy or the law of attraction energy of, you know, if you can think it, you can believe it, you can have it, you know, you can manifest it. So it's also deeply manifesting. So this Neptune energy, you really might want to put to work to get clear about what it is you're manifesting in the world. Really, truly, what do you want to manifest? What would bring you utter joy and bring in the higher harmonic of love, which is what Neptune's, you know, ultimately about. You know, you might also choose to feel that sense of togetherness and that opening, that heart opening with the rest of the community. So yeah, this is quite big. It's an opportunity, isn't it? Now, Also, what's playing into this is Vesta is really at the tail end of your second house, and wanting you to get very, very clear about what you know about your resources. Like, how resourced are you right now? Get truthful about it, because you might not have faced the truth. And you might have been kind of hiding in it a little bit. You know, the square to Neptune will have assisted you to hide and not quite face what's going on with your money, and also not quite face what's going on in terms of how you love and appreciate yourself and value yourself. The moon, however, in the beginnings of the third house in the sign of Cancer, is absolutely very much aware of your value in terms of how you fit into the local community, you know, how you fit into the environment that you live and thrive in. You know, so the moon here, you know, is very happy for you to consider something a lot more social and a lot more connected. The moon here is really wanting to feel even more belonging, I think, you know, given that the moon is very much about the home and feeling rooted. So, you know, are you about to root in a much bigger way? Are you going to get some insight into how you can feel a lot more global? I don't know. But maybe Vesta here has got some truth for you. You know, maybe Vesta's saying, well, you know, all the time you're trying to resource everything yourself, you know, you're not getting the best situation for yourself. Maybe if you were to join forces with other people, you know, so, and there might be some awkward truths that come out about that, you know, like, do you want to share resources? Do you want to help, I don't know, have a more of a community resource system in place, you know, and what would bring, you know, what emotions are going to come up at that point, you know, what would be easy, what would be difficult. Now, alongside that, and I said earlier in this video, I've put the Galactic Centre in literally just to show what is at the heart of the universe, or, you know, the voice of divinity, you know, the source of everything. You know, the whole idea that we are connected to source somehow, or God, or whoever you think it is. The voice of God, again, is talking in terms of being able to receive, but is also making you aware of joint, like reciprocal receiving and joint receiving and sharing. So there's a lot going on here about sharing. Now, the funny thing is, Taurus ascendants people are very good at sharing, in my opinion. I think you're very good at sharing. But Neptune here is giving you this brainwave, or this insight into how you can create more love, how you can create more space for creativity with other people. And of course, resources come up about this. So maybe the divinity within you, or outside of you, is giving you that nudge that, yes, you can only do this if you pay attention to how you are sharing your resources and some of the issues that might come up with that. Because if you think about it, the 8th house is a place of other people's judgments, which they put, you know, they put expectations on you. So yes, the divine energy might be saying it's all there for you. You can receive as much as you need, but other people are also receiving what they need. And, you know, we live in a place where we're judging each other. So you might need to clear away any lower feelings, any negative feelings that you might have about other people, and the feelings that you think they might be judging on you, in terms of how you're sharing things. But to me, there is a message about, you know, just how comfortable are you to create a global world. You know, on some level, I think it really, really appeals to you. And then on other levels, where it comes to some of the shared values between you and other people, there are some big challenges, and rightly so. You know, why would anyone let go of all of their control? Or, you know, how it's being pitched right now might not be very appealing. So this is one area that I think you might get a whole heap of insight. Last thing I would say is the 11th house is also a place of other people's children, in particular stepchildren. So if you do have a stepchild situation going on, you might get some sudden clarity around that. And it might be a creative endeavor. But the important thing is, like, how can you eradicate your doubts? You know, how can you let that sort of doubting feeling go, and feel clearer again? So again, there's the opportunity to grow stronger in your clarity around this. So I hope that's helpful for you anyway, Taurus ascendant. You know, this is a very creative energy, and the more you want to create with other people, the more that energy is expressed. Lots of love. So on to Gemini ascendant. Now, the Neptune Cazimi is showing up around your 10th house, which is quite a creative place, given that it's your career, it's how you stand in the world, what you're known for, etc., etc. So, you know, this is a pretty interesting spot, to say the very least. Now, there's also these, I guess this is a T-square, isn't it, between Vesta and the Moon. With Neptune Cazimi in the middle, and then the Galactic Centre on the other side. Now, I've put the Galactic Centre in. I don't normally use the Galactic Centre, and I'm going to do a deep dive with a good friend, Alexandra Jowett, who is an amazing astrologer. So we will be doing a lot more about this. But I've put this in really just to show the voice of divinity, or the overall source of all life. It's just as a marker to represent what it's all about, you know. So let's interpret this a little bit. So what I really notice here is that we've got stuff going on in a series of places, and these are an opportunity. So the first and second house, but you know, the sort of cusp between the first and second, the 7th house and the 10th house. Now, the 1st, 7th and 10th are all angular houses. They're all really important houses to do with your identity. So how do you know yourself to be? How do you fit in with other people? Or how do you know yourself to be with other people? And then how you show yourself in the world. It's like your public facing side. So whatever's going on with this Neptune Cazimi that's taking place for 14 hours, you know, it is absolutely giving you the chance to develop yourself in such a way that you can be more visible, whilst also being really real to who you really are. So Vesta here, right at the tail end of your first house, is really asking you to get absolutely super duper clear. And you might want to refer to your body to know if you're telling the truth or not. So Vesta is really standing for the truth. She's very much felt in the belly, in the sacral area. And, you know, you need to check in with yourself. If you are trying to change the way you're seen publicly, if you're trying to rebrand, if you're trying to do any of that, check in with your body. Ask yourself, is this true for me? And if you're not sure, ask, whose truth is this for me? Because you might realize you're holding on to somebody else's vision of who you are. Now, the moon is also quite interesting. The moon's just gone into second, and the moon in the second is looking for a lot more security. You know, the moon in the second is thinking, is feeling like things have been a little bit too emotional, and is wanting to feel more secure, like there's a lot more resources to protect the moon. And so, you know, whatever you're creating for yourself with this Neptune Cazimi energy, it may well be really well served if it can help you feel more secure. So you might ask yourself, you know, if I do this, which feels like my truth, is this going to help me feel more secure? And that will give you some ideas. Now, the voice of the universe, or the voice of God, the voice of divinity, is also saying, well, it's not really just about how you see yourself and how you feel secure in yourself, because you can't truly have security in yourself if you can't fully feel secure with other people. There's this very strong sort of parallel, you know, from your truth to the overall truth that is maintained by everyone. So you might choose, I know this sounds really weird, but you might actually, given that I said just moments ago, you might want to ask yourself, whose truth does this belong to? Whose truth is this? What I would actually advise with this Neptune Cazimi, if you are wanting to create something for yourself, that's really in alignment with who you think you are, that you actually sit down, if you can, and sit still. I'm sure you can. But I would absolutely recommend that you tune in to what does life want you to do? What does the world want you to do? Who does the world believe you to be? And so try to get that collective view of how you might see. So it's fine for you to have your truth, but what's really showing up here is what is true for you is not necessarily the truth for everyone else. And so again, you might just want to kind of sit in the center point and think, who, like, I guess, who am I? I mean, this sounds really, really kind of trippy. Like, what's it all about? This, when I'm looking at this Neptune alignment, this is making me think, what's it all about? Why am I here? What's my purpose? Like the first house, the seventh house, like, who am I? Who am I to everybody else? And what does that mean I should do? So these are very big questions you might be asking yourself, Gemini ascendant. So yeah, in terms of putting this energy to good use, if I was in your shoes, I would ask yourself the absolute biggest questions you can, which is kind of a little bit odd because, like, when I think about the way Geminis think, you're more sort of fact-based and slightly more rational. And so I do think this Neptune energy is likely to really challenge you at some level, so rather than say, okay, is this the right job for me? Or is this the right move for me? Is this the right promotion for me? Don't ask yourself these yes, no questions. Ask yourself, what would be the best situation for me to express in my career? How might I best stand in the world? And ask yourself these big, fluffy questions and then just kind of leave them hanging. Don't answer them. Let life answer them. So if you listen to this before the Cazimi starts, you might actually find that you want to ask these questions before it starts and then let life show you what's happening. All you need to do really is to absolutely listen with your body. Like I said at the start, like, use your body to check in. And if something comes up and you think, is that a clue? Oh, that's interesting. Then check it with your body. How does it feel? So there you go. Hopefully that's helpful. Don't forget, after the Cazimi, the Neptune is combust until I think the 25th of March. So, it might start to feel a bit confusing again, or a little, you might feel a bit worn out and a bit tired. And we've got a season change and also the penumbral lunar eclipse, which is a full moon on the 25th. It's a big day. But by the 2nd of April, Neptune will be back to normal. And I think people will be into their natural intuition once again. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. And if I can be of any help, then just give me a shout. On to Cancer ascendant then. So, hey, Cancer ascendant, how you doing? Hopefully you're well. So I'm looking at this Neptune Cazimi from the perspective of what is it awakening in your chart right now? What side of you is being awoken? What's it asking of you? I mean, Neptune Cazimi is almost like a shamanic initiation. It's drawing you deep into the mystery of everything. And so in this short forecast, I'm looking at the position of Vesta, which is in a square to Neptune Cazimi. And it's just in your 12th house. I'm also looking at the moon at 0 degrees in the sign of Cancer, also in a square. I've also put in the Galactic Centre, which is showing up at 27 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. That's pretty much where it is. And, how that is speaking to you. I mean, ultimately, it's the voice of the divine, or the voice of our source, the core of who we are, maybe the core of where all the universes have come from, depending on what your viewpoint is of how it all fits together. Like, what is this world? What is this life and stuff? So, with all of these forces, these guys working against each other, and then both working in a square to Neptune Cazimi. How is this going to be expressed in your chart? What mystery are you going to be unraveling for yourself? Well, the first thing that really strikes me is it's occurring in your ninth house, which is cool, because the ninth house is all about an expanded state. It's very much about spirituality and religion. It's also very much about philosophies, ideas, maybe politics, things you're reading, research. It's very much about the higher mind and learning more and experiencing more. It's also about journeying. So it could, if you're a bit shamanic, it could be you journeying into yourself or outside of yourself, so to speak. And it's also very much about other consciousness, maybe from a different country. So I guess the spirit of adventure is there, and the spirit to know something outside of your normal reality. So that's where you've kind of got a looking glass into an altered state, an altered belief system. The ninth house is all about belief systems. So you've got this chance to really check out your current belief systems for their validity and maybe expand and learn something new. You might have this kind of sudden knowing that what you've known to be true actually isn't, and there's a much deeper something or other that's arising within you. So I do think it's shifting your perception on the world. Now, Vesta, to do with your kind of physical truth that in your body, like that sense of knowing, and that absolute desire and drive to find the truth, is showing up in your 12th house. Now, that's not a very comfortable position for you. You do get that sense of knowing from her, but it's very instinctual, and it's not easily articulated. So you may well, with Vesta in your 12th, have this sense of, oh, this is how it is. But you can't exactly say why. So Vesta's a little bit mysterious here. She's not giving you the full information. I guess what she is hinting at is that if you do want to really know the truth, you have to go into your unconscious mind. You do need to check out your memories, check out your the past, check out your emotional, spiritual connection to things. There's another, that is really another indication that this might be something that is very much felt in a shamanistic way. The 12th house is very private and dreamy and illusionary, and the ninth is very sort of expanded. So the two of these working together, you really could create, have a real sort of opening experience at this time. Now, with the moon going through your first house as well, that's just going to make you so much more intuitive as well, and also highly sensitive, and quite possibly triggerable. You're likely to feel a lot more sensitive on this day, and anything that is revealed to you, anything that comes through meditation or dream work especially here, is likely to give you a very strong visceral reaction from your emotions. Last of all, in terms of the voice of divinity, I think the overall advice is you need to get everything right in your life. If you can absolutely see that God or source energy or I don't know how everything fits together. If you could see the perfection of it in every aspect of your life, even in the mundane aspects like cleaning your house or going and buying the shopping or going to work or putting petrol in your car or whatever, diesel, or plugging your car in, even however you've got it for yourself, or even getting on your bike. Crikey, I don't want to miss anyone out in case I create some kind of environmental faux pas here. But the voice of God or the voice of the universe, if it was pulsing through and you could really hear it, is just like everything is divine. Even if the 6th house doesn't look particularly divine, it's all divine. It's all there. It's all there to support you. And if you could treat every aspect of your mundane life, your mundane like day-to-day expression of things, if you could treat that as if it was sacred, your journeying with Neptune would come so much easier, and your sense of knowing would be so much easier to take in your body too. So I hope that's helpful for you, Cancer Ascendant. I mean, this Cazimi is for 14 hours, and the timing of that is in the notes below. So it's for 14 hours. It's like this window of opportunity. And beyond the Cazimi, when that passes, Neptune is going to be combust until the 25th of March, and thereafter it will be under the beams until the 2nd of April. So you may well find that you're feeling quite dreamy and possibly a bit tired. We are going through something at the moment, I do believe. There's a lot going on astrologically. So don't give yourself a hard time if you're feeling extra sensitive after this. Just allow whatever is changing within you to occur. It really feels like you are on a very deep and strong journey, changing the way you see reality right now. So anyway, Cancer Ascendant, I hope that was helpful. And if I can be of any help in the future, just give me a shout. Lots of love. Leo Ascendant then. So what is coming up for you in this with this forecast and with this Neptune Cazimi? So what I've got here is I've got the point of the Neptune Cazimi. Now, if you've listened to the first part of the video, you'll know that it's active for 14 hours, and that, for the last 17 days or so, 16 days, Neptune has been under the beams, and then it's been combust. And so lots of people have been feeling quite tired, a bit discombobulated, a little bit fuzzy in their thinking. And after these 14 days, you're going to be feeling like that most likely up until the 2nd of April. The combust is going on to the 25th. That's when we're super tired and not quite, functioning really clearly. And what I would say is just, these times either side of the Cazimi, I think it's time to just have faith that what is taking place right now, even if it seems a bit chaotic, even if you feel a bit tired or like you can't quite keep up with your quite dazzling life right now, it's important to just let it settle. But this Cazimi in and of itself is a really great little window of opportunity. And if you look at it as a window to channel deeply into things, then this could be quite helpful. So what is it connected to? It's in a square to Vesta at 26 degrees in the sign of Gemini. It's also in a square to the moon at 0 degrees in the sign of Cancer in your 12th. And it's also in a square to the Galactic Centre in the sign of Sagittarius in your 5th house. Now, I'm using the Galactic Centre just to give you a sense of all that is and the source of everything. Like, where has it all come from? And the mystery, the Galactic Centre is almost pulsing this information to Neptune in his Cazimi form, so that we can perceive really, like, what is the nature of reality? What is the nature of spiritual reality, material reality? How can we work with it? And then Vesta here is really showing you what is absolutely true for you, what is absolutely truly felt in your body, and truly felt, like, what are your core values? Vesta really shows you what's going on there. And then the moon is obviously showing where your emotions are right now. So at the time of the Cazimi for you, I would say there's a real big shift for you going on in terms of what you're creating and what you are co-creating. So, at the center of this, I would say, that you're a creative being, and that you want to spread joy, seed joy any which way you can. And that you are a source of living joy. You come from joy, you come from divinity, and your creativity really won't dry out. It's there. It's the condition of being alive. And then on the other hand, it feels like when you're co-creating either with life, like you're like using the law of attraction, or like co-creating with other people on something more global, it almost feels like people are coming to you with their truth, And that is why they're creating with you. But that might not necessarily be your truth and why you want to be creative. So I think the challenge for you, which this Neptune Cazimi may well answer, is how can you be a divine creator when all the creators around you are creating from their perceptual truth, but not necessarily from a global truth or a real, like the truth. You know, we all have our own sort of like reality shifts. Something else that might be going on is that there's the sense of the truth of your children, and then maybe the truth of stepchildren, you know, because that's also covered by the 5th and the 11th house if you have children or stepchildren. So, you know the truth of your own creations, but you can't quite put your finger on those creations that haven't come from your truth, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? And so the Neptune Cazimi here is absolutely giving you a window of opportunity to look into the looking glass of the expectations that other people are putting on you. You know, the 8th house is deeply psychic, deeply mysterious, has all the secrets. It's almost as if you might find out the truth about your relationships with children, the truth of your relationships about how you are creating, and to go deeper and deeper. Now, ultimately, I think you probably want Neptune to be working with you here because, you know, this is the source of your joy. It's also the source of your sexual pleasure as well, and your romantic pleasure. And it's always feeding back to you. So if you could use Neptune Cazimi to help you feel more confident about who you are and less in doubt because of other people's expectations, that would be really marvelous. Suffice to say, you really don't want other people's expectations that show up in the 8th house to put a dampener on this. You know, maybe Neptune will actually help you to connect to all that is and kind of bypass all that isn't. You know, because when you're living to somebody else's truth, you're not being yourself. You know, this whole exercise is being you and knowing the divinity of it. Last thing, you know, with the moon in the 12th house, your receivership is massive. You know, you're like a massive antenna during this Cazimi event. You know, it could be quite tiring, really, given that you've got, you know, the 12th and the 8th highlighted, both very, very psychic houses. So yeah, go easy on yourself, Leo Ascendant. This whole Cazimi is here to help you perceive more joy, to be more active in it, and to find a way to stop being blocked by other people not wanting you to be in your joy, if that makes sense. Hope that's helpful to you, and catch you another time. Lots of love. Okay, so Virgo Ascendant, let's check out where this Cazimi is showing up in your chart, and also talk a little bit about some of the other characters that are playing into this Cazimi. So the Cazimi itself is lasting for 14 hours, and the dates are in the description below. So that 14 hours is a kind of a window to your soul, or a window to really look deeply into things, and to be able to use creativity, psychic energy, to channel the answers and the clarity that you might need. It's almost like a shamanic journey where you can really voyage. So I think it's going to be great. Now it's showing up in your 7th house. So yes, I think it could be really great. I also think it could bring up all sorts of knowledge that you may or may not be ready for. And I think, yeah, challenge on. If someone said that to me, I'd be like, that's what you think. I'd be like, oh, really? Let's find out, shall we? Anyway, Vesta is in a square to Neptune Cazimi at 26 degrees in sign of Gemini. The moon is at 0 degrees in sign of Cancer. And the Galactic Centre is at 27 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. Now, I've put this in. I'm not really talking so much about it. I will be doing a video later on with a good friend called Alexandra Jowett, who's an amazing transformative astrologer. And we're going to be doing a show about this and Neptune. They're in a square at the moment, and for a really long time, actually. So what is that doing to human consciousness? But anyway, this is to show you the voice of divinity and how it shows up in your chart. Like, what is it there to represent? And it's showing up in the 4th house. I really think that the perfection of all that is in your life is really about home, and to know that you're home. What could be the best? What message could be even better than that? You know, I guess, aren't we all searching for home at some level, to know we are home, we belong? And maybe the voice of divinity here is kind of saying to Neptune, in this square, in this Cazimi, and saying, look, whatever you're trying to work out, ultimately, the reason why you want to work it out is because you're trying to find where you're home, and how you know you're home, how you know you're safe. It's like getting you back to the root or the core of who you are. Now, Vesta in the 10th, Vesta is your truth that you feel in your body. And so I think you know where you're home when it's about your career, or when you're out in the world. I get the feeling that you really know kind of who you are, and you're able to show up. You've got these kind of boundaries, like you know where you start and you end, and that's all well and good. And so Vesta right now, and at the time of the Cazimi, is really there to support you, to know what you're about, how far you go in respect of your career, and you know, not getting you to go too far. It knows your truth. It knows your integrity there. And so integrity is a really huge thing in terms of what you're working out. The moon here at 0 degrees in sign of Cancer, in this place of networking and friends. Again, you've got this feeling that you belong to your friends. You've got this sensation that you belong to your networks. So, you know, these two placed up here, it's very much about you finding your sense of belonging through what you do and who you are doing it with. But is that answering your question of who you really are and where you're home? No, it's not. And so this Neptune Cazimi, this window of opportunity to dive right deep into who you are, and to get this chance to try and get clear, you know, to be able to perceive what's really going on at a whole new level, through the veils, through the mystery of what it is you're here to do. You know, this exploration, I think, is answered through your relationships. You know, not just your working relationships or your friendships and things, but the people you're really close to. And I think it's kind of uncomfortable because, you know, it's easy for us to feel, you know, materially secure or purposefully secure, because a job kind of keeps our unconscious mind really active, and it kind of, you know, the monkey in our head that's saying, oh, am I good enough? Do I need to doubt myself? You know, it keeps you so busy up here that you don't necessarily have to stop and examine what's really going on. And so what I would say in terms of this Neptune Cazimi is, you have to step away from this to be able to find the mystery of who you are and what would really help you feel safe, secure, and at home in yourself and in your personality. Now, Neptune's been going through this part of your chart for a really long time, and sometimes it hasn't, you know, a lot of the time it does have a happy ending. You know, loads of people have great relationships, and there are lots of people that don't. And for people that come to see me that aren't having great relationships, often you've got Pluto or Neptune going through this 7th house, and, you know, they're both slow. And Uranus as well. And, you know, they're both really slow. All three of them are slow moving. And so when you've got one of these going through your house of relationships, it feels interminable, you know, and the kinds of, you know, these planets, when they go through the 7th house, it shows how your partners are changing. So you might have been in the perfect relationship, and it feels now that your partner has changed a lot over the course or the duration of the relationship. And it's like, hey, I didn't ask you to change. And yet they're still in your life. There is still a connection between you. It's not done, you know? And so how do people change when you've got Neptune going through your 7th? Well, some of them become more godly and more spiritual and more elevated and more connected. Some of them get a lot more creative. In some relationships, they seem to get a bit more manipulative or a little less clear or a little gaslighty or a little bit victimy, so all levels of manipulation, whether it's consciously known or kind of hidden from. So you may well have found that your partnerships in recent times haven't felt as stable, haven't felt as reliable. And yes, you might still feel connected to them, but given that Neptune's here, you can't quite put your finger on why you feel connected to them. And it's a bit of a mystery. And so again, that will be why this area of your chart, like your career and your friends, is much easier because you've got clarity there. Whereas in your own personal relationships, it's a bit of a mystery. And you're not entirely sure and you have your doubts. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, Virgo ascendant, at the time of the Cazimi, I would use this energy not only to find out how to feel secure and safe in myself, which is what the Galactic Centre is saying. This is how you're connected to all that is. You can feel at home. This Neptune Cazimi will help you get really a lot clearer in terms of the questions you need to ask your partners, what you need in a relationship to feel at home. So if I was in your shoes, I think I would use this moment in time to peer into the projection of other people. What you're seeing in other people is quite possibly what you're not prepared to see in yourself. So, you're putting on the changes you're going through onto the people around you. Are you being creative enough? Are you being responsible enough? Are you needing to cut free and break loose? So, you're seeing that your partners are wriggling in and out of commitment in terms of how they're showing up. Is that because actually you need to have a bit more freedom and flexibility? Do you need to actually be a little bit okay with being confused about your relationships in the way that your partners are presenting this? You might be needing to be a lot more spiritual and connected, to have that feeling. You might need to do more like yoga or singing or whatever it is that brings you to bliss that you are seeing in the people around you. So what I would say is whatever other people are showing you in your relationships to them, you might choose to deep dive into that. Use your creativity, use the Cazimi as a window to see beyond, see what you can't yet see about yourself. I don't know if that's helpful. I touched on lots in that. Now, obviously, Vesta and the moon keep on moving. So, this is just where you're at the moment. It just seems so much easier in this very defined and public side of your life. Whereas this has created an ongoing mystery. And it's one that you could really do with getting some clarity on. Like I said, with the Galactic Centre here, really what you're looking for is how to feel secure and at home. So lots of love to you. I hope this is a vision quest of great importance and clarity. I hope you feel much better for that. Anyway, lots of love to you, Virgo Ascendant, and speak to you real soon. Bye for now. Hey, Libra or Libra Ascendant, how are you doing? So I'm looking at this particular forecast from the perspective of Neptune Cazimi in your birth chart and how that 14-hour window of opportunity is likely to play out, and also some of the slightly larger patterns that are going on leading into this and beyond it. So since I don't know if you've seen the earlier part of the video, but I break down the fact that Neptune has been under the beams or combust, i.e. not playing to his full strengths since the beginning of March. And it intensified from the 9th of March, leading us up to where we are right now, just before the Cazimi. And we've often felt quite tired and slightly bewildered, slightly unclear of what's going on. After the Cazimi, really from the later on the day of the 17th of March, right up until the 2nd of April, Neptune again isn't quite functioning in the usual way. Our usual access to creativity and also to our natural intuition is slightly off. It's slightly different. It's altered. But this particular Cazimi is going to give you the full capability of your intuition, much more than usual, and it's going to open up a looking glass into your life somehow. Almost like you could see beyond the veils and get a special message, get a sense of what is good and true and right for you. So how is this going to come for you? Like, how is it showing up? Well, to do that, I'm also examining where Vesta is in your chart, because or where Vesta is right now. Vesta is the goddess of integrity and truth, our sacred truth, our feeling of sacred power. And she's in a square to Neptune Cazimi. We've also got the Galactic Centre, 27 degrees in Sun Sagittarius. Now, I don't normally talk about this. I am going to do a deeper dive with a good astrologer friend called Alexandra Jowett from Jupiter Returns. So stay tuned for that one. But I'm mentioning it a little bit because it is in a tight square with Neptune. And the Galactic Centre, I've put it in really to represent all that is divine, like the true link to what is, like everything that is, the source of everything, so to speak. The other thing that I've put into this reading is the moon, which at the time of the Cazimi is at 0 degrees in the sign of Cancer. Looks like I'm getting a divine message from one of my 3 cats. So I'm just going to pause this and come back in just a second. So my cat has been dispatched with in a very gentle way. She's been kicked out of the office. So now I can really sort of like get down to what's really going on. So the Neptune Cazimi is showing up in your 6th house. That's because that's where Neptune is right now. Neptune is right at the tail end of the 6th house when, we're looking at this from a whole sign forecasting perspective. Now, having Neptune going through this part of your chart for so long will have created a lot of change for you in terms of how you run your life and how satisfied you are with how you're running your life. Like the 6th house is a place of functionality. The 6th house is where you're actively getting more organized, where you're actively getting more fit, where you're actively getting more healthy, where you're actively getting cleaner. Everything is getting cleaner and more, just more fit for purpose, I guess. And so having Neptune, which is really nebulous, really emphasizing the fact that you've got Pisces here, is somewhat confusing. It almost might be that, you've been kind of unsure about what's going on with your health, given that the health is one of the things that shows up here, and unsure about the boundaries of, what comes into your life and what goes out of your life, how to run your money, which again is kind of run from this area of your chart as well. It's like getting everything working, getting all your habits sorted has been probably a bit of an ongoing challenge, as Neptune's gone through here. Like the amount of resolve that you might need to be able to complete tasks and feel on top of things has been lacking. And it's been, Neptune's been in this part of your chart since 2011. It's a long time. He's got another year to go. But here's where I think you can get some real insight into what's playing out, with this particular pattern. So for instance, like Neptune shows us, it gives us insight when we're really wanting it. It gives us the insight. It shows us the truth. It shows us what's beyond the veil that's adding into the reason why things are the way they are. And what that really speaks to me about is self-sabotage. The programs that you've got running that you're not quite consciously aware of. And the fact that they keep going and they keep going, and you can try to get to the bottom of it and yet you can't quite get there. Now, I do accept that this is the sort of funny thing about having Libra ascendant. I mentioned this actually in my last video. Libra ascendant and all the house positions and signs all seem kind of back to front, so, traditionally most people would think of the 6th house as a very sort of like functional place, which is very much about the sort of Virgo energy. And yet from your perspective, The way you're running your life is a lot more sort of Piscean, which is kind of intuitive and go with the flow and this, that, and the other. However, that doesn't necessarily befit the Libran ascendant energy, which is very graceful and quite diplomatic. And there's a lot of get up and go there for you. So, where has your get up and go kind of got up and gone? And, with Neptune going through this area, where have your habits kind of disintegrated and left you a lot less dynamic than you would need to be? Like the ascendant in the sign of Libra can really bring in a lot of great activations, a lot of great energy to mobilize things because of your ability to be able to create balance, see fairness, see both sides of every story. It gives you a really strong negotiating power. It gives you quite a lot of gravitas, I would say. And yet Neptune going through this area of your life is almost undermining the level of gravitas you could have. So you've got so many things sorted out about how you see the world, and yet how you're actually running your life doesn't seem quite so certain. It's almost like you've got doubts about it and you can't quite get to the bottom of it. So I think that this Cazimi is going to be really helpful and instrumental in getting clear about what you need to do, what actual steps you need to take to be able to make the change, and not just what steps do you need to make, but also what are the underlying programs that are contributing to the outcomes you're getting in your life. So, now the Galactic Centre, or the voice of God, or the source energy that's playing out right now, if it was to say anything to you right now, it would. There's a few things it would be saying. The first one is some of these habits can be learnt, and some of these habits might need a mentor. So, you might actually find that there is a really good mentor around for you. So obviously the divine mentor, or God, or whoever your God is actually the perfect kind of mentor that can kind of coach you through step by step, hold your hand, get you through the whole process. But you might also choose to get a mentor to help you organize your life, not because you're a failure at it or anything like that. Again, it's not about creating doubt or like eradicating your self-confidence. We're not, this is not what this reading's about, but it's recognizing that you can only do so much on your own. And right now it'd be useful to have somebody else just to help you through the next step and the next step and the next step. So as you might be going into self-sabotage, somebody around you can say, hey, I recognize this. I know about this. Let me help you through it. It's like almost catching you out in the process of sabotaging yourself. Because like Neptune, when he's unchecked, he will bring up your doubts and he will ruin your confidence. And he's not a natural bedfellow for the sixth house. He's not, he doesn't operate very well there. He creates too much ambiguity. So I would recommend actually a coach be very helpful to get you through in this next year, because if you were to use a coach, and also in particular an intuitive coach, like somebody that could intuitively get you to get to where you need to be, how you need to do it, and to help you learn how to do it yourself so that you could absolutely see your patterns ahead of time, work on them, know how to get there, then between now and when Neptune sods off and goes into Aries, you're going to be transforming your life in a really magical kind of quantum way. It's not like you're getting your life sorted out, but it's like you're getting your life sorted out in a, almost in a kind of life purpose kind of way. It's almost like the more you do to straighten out your life, the more you understand the real purpose of you being here. Now, I haven't really spoken about Vesta and the moon here. Now, Vesta, about your truth, your felt truth in your body, is showing up in the ninth house. Again, it's about learning. And, Vesta actually just wants to dive right in. So you could actually learn this yourself. Maybe you don't need a mentor or a coach. However, Vesta here has got her nose in a book. So she's looking through the bookcases. Oh, this looks good. Oh, this looks good. But Vesta isn't necessarily very determined or what's the word? Not determined, disciplined necessarily in this sign or in this position. So, you may well also need to find some way of increasing discipline, like getting your discipline a lot more settled and feeling a lot stronger. Because, there's no doubt that you can create things and activate things and get things moving. The Libran energy, the cardinal energy, is really, really strong at moving things and accomplishing things and creating outcomes. Now, the last thing I would say is the moon in the 10th is actually quite liberating in this moment of the Cazimi. As you feel into what it feels like to be a success, but know that it's kind of built on maybe shaky sands or not really strong foundations. Like, you've got the skill set for sure, but it's almost like your life isn't quite sorted enough to get you to the next level. Your emotionalism here, how you feel it, and I think what is coming with this Neptune Cazimi is the insight and the strong feeling from the moon in Cancer to say, yeah, I know now I actually do need to make this change. And I can see that as I make these changes, life is going to activate for me really quite magically. So yeah, tune in, use this moment in time, the 14 hours of the Cazimi, to deep dive, like open up the window, open up your little scrying glass or whatever it is you've got, your crystal ball, or just a conversation with somebody that can help you, and deep dive into your true underlying motivations about how you're living your life and what's working, what's not, and see what comes up. This is a very, very powerful day for you. So I hope that's helpful to you, Libra ascendant. Catch you next time. Okay, Scorpio ascendant. So how are you doing? So this is, Neptune Cazimi forecast. Now, obviously, the Cazimi is kind of done and dusted within 14 hours. And if you've checked out the first part, you'll see a lot more information. You'll hear a lot more information about the programming of that particular Cazimi energy, and also how, in March, Neptune has been under the beams, i.e. weakened, and then in a combust position, so even more strongly weakened. And then how after the Cazimi, Neptune is kind of weakened by the combustion and also the separating beams until the 2nd of April. So, you may well have felt like things have been a bit confusing, not quite so clear. And then there's this day on the 17th that has lots of energy, lots of insight, lots of ways to grow and get excited about what you're doing. Because what I'm doing here is looking at not only the Neptune Cazimi, but some of the things that are making hard aspects to it. So I've got Vesta here in the 8th, the moon at 0 degrees in the 9th house in the sign of Cancer. And I've also put in the Galactic Centre, which I don't put in ever to anybody's chart, but I'm going to be doing a show with Alexandra Jowett in hopefully around midsummer. I think we'll do something. We're going to do a show specifically about the Galactic Centre and also Neptune and their square. This is an ongoing square. It's not a sort of like done and dusted thing. It's taking quite a while. It's going to be around for a long time, but we're going to do a massive deep dive on that. I can't wait. But anyway, I'm putting the Galactic Centre in to really represent the voice of all that is. Like, if there was a source of everything, like the source of all life as we know it, and that is the word of God or the word of the divine, that is your connection into divinity, then I've popped that in to represent it. So we've got the Cazimi, like I said, it's 14 hours from start to finish. We've got the Galactic Centre, the voice of God or divinity. We've got Vesta, which is your sacred truth, that feeling of integrity that is absolutely going inside your body and kind of churning around. And also the moon in the 9th house. So what occurs to me about how you're going to use this energy? Well, Fifth house, everything creative. So you as a creator, you as a being that wants to experience deep joy and passion. The fifth house is all about passion and joy. So are you experiencing enough of it? If not, why not? Any sort of issues about your children, if you have them, or anything that you have given birth to. So your ideas, the book you're writing, the hobbies you've got, lovemaking, because obviously you are birthing lovemaking. It's an absolutely beautiful experience. The fifth house is all about fun and also romance, so all of your, if you have a new romance, a new sort of connection with somebody, it's all these tender new beginnings. But ultimately the fifth house is about joy, so you have got some deep intel from the cosmos about how to experience greater levels of joy in your life. Now, I think this is actually quite a cool position to have Neptune Cazimi, to be fair, because Neptune, wherever he goes, he confuses things. He makes it really difficult to see the wood for the trees. And yes, he is a creative soul, so he's bringing up your sense of creativity, but there's no boundaries, and that's possibly the problem for you, Scorpio ascendant, is that you are so full of these ideas, like this, I want to create this, I want to create that, I don't want to have any boundaries about it. You might be collecting pets or kids or whatever, you've got so much birthing going on, and these birthing experiences where you're getting really excited, and there's something that you can joyfully get involved in and help to create and help to put your little special touch onto. That sounded a bit creepy, but there is so much of this birthing energy around that it's time for some really deep insight into the whys and wherefores of how hard you're working, how much you're doing to create, and whether you actually need to do all of what you say you are. So interestingly, the voice of the divine, the voice of divine reason is, it's in your second house. So like, are you creating because you want money? Are you creating because you're learning more about yourself? Like, in terms of valuing yourself more? And the divine voice, if it was to say anything to you, it would probably say, you are already enough. Slow the hell down. Like, get off the creation trail. You don't need to create all day long, every day. Stop, slow down, enjoy yourself. Flippin' heck. Just enjoy being yourself. You are enough. That is, I think, what the Galactic Centre would say to you if it could actually vocalize. So, one of the things you might want to like slow down and examine with this Neptune Cazimi is to connect into the creativity that is absolutely going to create more joy for you, that is going to create more self-belief for you, and that is just helping you spread and share more joy. So we've got Vesta here in the sign of Gemini. Now Vesta's interesting because she shows you the truth of what you're passionate about, and so there is also this truth that's playing out in your life right now, whereby you maybe are aware of judgments, aware of expectations that people are putting on you. You might also be aware of different financial things going on. The eighth house has a lot to do with shared resources and shared value systems. And it's also very much about the secrets of life, what comes up, and the phases of life that you're going through. So, what stage of life are you at? And how comfortable are you with those changes? So, Vesta, you're already feeling the truth of your value through the eyes of other people. Now, that can be good or it can be difficult. Now, here's the thing. Vesta is in a square to Neptune, and the Galactic Centre is also in a square to Neptune. So at some level, it feels like your desire to create is not fully checking into what you think people think about what you are doing, and possibly the feedback that you're getting from the people in your life. And on the other hand, you're not truly listening to what life is saying, that is, you are enough already. You don't have to create more value for yourself. You just have to be, and you just have to enjoy yourself. And if you're doing that, everything else will just really flow into place. With the moon at 0 degrees in the sign of Cancer as well, your emotions and your intuition are very much about a higher meaning in life, and more adventure in your life, and more expansion in your life. And you can't necessarily expand if you've created too much busyness. So I think with this Neptune Cazimi, maybe what you choose to do, if I can be so bold as to make a suggestion, is to really sit and go through all the things you're wanting to create and getting excited about creating. And two things. First thing, ask each of these creations in your head. Okay, are you creating more joy for me? Yes or no? Are you creating more joy for me? Yes or no? Are you creating more money for me? Yes or no? And ditch the ones about money and go for the joy. I know that sounds counterintuitive. If you have more time, you can pick up the money ones, but it's really important that you follow your joy right now as a preference. It's who you are. You know, you are there to be creating more joy right now. That's your job. So do it. Create more joy, spread more sunshine. The moon up here is wanting you to spend so much more time exploring. So the other question you might ask your creations is, are you expanding my experience right now? If I'm creating you and you're expanding my experience, great. If you're not expanding my experience and taking me on an adventure, and if it's a drudge and if it feels like hard work, it's not for you. So yeah, wow. So that's what I think is going on for you right now, Scorpio. So maybe you might want to choose to sit with your creations and your spirit of creativity, and that spirit might be about children. So you might apply those kinds of questions with your children, like, how can I create more joy with my child? And you might realize that some of the things you're trying to do with your child is try to create something, and maybe not that's creating money, but might create status or might create better life options for them. But it's not what they're wanting. What is wanting to be expressed is how you can have more joy with them. So yeah, I think there's a lot there. And if I was in your shoes, which I am actually, because I've got Scorpio ascendant myself, this is actually ringing true for me. Over those 14 hours, go beyond the veils, like use your little looking glass and really check out your motives. Because anywhere where you're creating things to feel better about yourself and to feel like you've got greater value in the world, let it go. Really let it go. This is time for you to relax into the knowing that you are a child of God. You are a child of light. You're a child of divinity. And that in and of itself is a creation. So there you go. This is quite possibly my favorite reading so far. But anyway, lots and lots of love to you. Have a great experience and speak to you real soon. Bye for now. Okay, Sagittarius ascendant, how are you doing as we come up to this Neptune Cazimi? So, right. So the Neptune Cazimi, I've spoken a lot about the coding of it, what it's about, when it's happening, etc., and also detailed that from the 1st of March right the way through to the 16th of March, Neptune has been under the beams and then has been in a combust position, really showing that we're not really functioning from a completely clear creative space that Neptune might offer us, or if we're working intuitively, or if we're involved in healthcare and stuff like that and feeling good, we're all feeling a bit stodgy and a little bit disoriented. I've also detailed the times when Neptune and the sun are separating and coming out of that Cazimi, going back into the combust position and back into the under the beams. It's all at the first part of the show. So, check that out. There'll be a chapter where you can see the dates. But this particular time, the Cazimi, is a 14-hour-ish window of opportunity whereby you've got access to see beyond what you can normally see the truth, see the creativity, see the natural impulse. There's an element of divinity and spirituality with Neptune. There is also a beautiful element of creativity and spontaneity and rising up with Neptune. I think it's great. So here's what I've put into this particular reading. The position of the Cazimi, I've put in Vesta because she is in a square to Neptune and the sun. And I've also put in the moon, which is also in a square to Neptune and the sun. And the moon is at 0 degrees Cancer. Hello, an activation point going on there. The last thing I've put in is the Galactic Centre position. Now, I don't normally work with the Galactic Centre. Funnily enough, it's actually in a conjunction with my son at birth. So, maybe I should pay a bit more attention to it. But my good friend, astrologer, Alexandra Jowett from Jupiter Returns, she said, hey, let's do a show later on this year about the Galactic Centre and the square that it has to Neptune. Because right now, these guys are in a square. They're going to be in a square all year, pretty much. So we're going to explore that in another show. But she just put it back on my radar. And I thought, oh, today is the perfect day to have a look at that. So I'm paying it a little bit of attention, but if you are interested in it, then look out for when Alexandra and I do something about the Galactic Centre and Neptune, because I think it's going to be great. She's got fantastic insights. So anyway, how is all this playing out? So the window of perception is opening during these 14 hours, really in your 4th house, which is about your place of home. It's where you live. It's also very much about how safe and secure you feel. A lot of your behaviors that are driven through emotions, they are formed from the family home. They are formed from your childhood. So childhood comes into this as well. But the 4th is really very much your base, your root, and how rooted and secure and safe you feel. So my first question is, how safe do you feel? You've had Neptune going through this place for flipping ages. And Neptune dissolves our feeling of stability. Neptune creates possibilities. Now, a lot of people don't want possibilities for expansion to happen in their home because it's destabilizing. So, it hasn't been that clear for you for quite a long time in terms of your home and how that feels. So, this Cazimi, if you use the energy to kind of scry into your life, you could probably really find some great insights as to what's going on. Where we're not quite comfortable, Neptune creates doubts about our capability. And so you might choose to examine, well, why don't I feel completely capable in my life? Why don't I feel completely capable to find my security? And Neptune, I think if you can get beyond the veil, which this is giving you the opportunity to, I think you'll find some of the self-sabotaging behaviors that are going on leading to this. And some of these behaviors are quite addicting, because, Neptune, if we're confused and we're feeling doubtful, we often want to lose ourselves a bit. And so alcohol crops up, drink, drugs, inappropriate dalliances that kind of take us out of ourselves for a moment. Anything that can stimulate us and help us forget that we don't feel quite so secure as we want to. So I see this as a window opening to give you those answers and to help you get to the bottom of the self-sabotage so you can blast that bad boy out of it, and it's totally possible, and something I said earlier in the show, Neptune is going to have one more Cazimi in Pisces around this time in 2025. Thereafter, it's in a new pattern. It's going into the sign of Aries. So you are really at the tail end of whatever has been playing out for you in terms of your home. So I just really want you to appreciate that. This is a changing picture for you. And it might not come as quickly as you want, or it might do, because the Cazimi could absolutely open you up to something really quite magical in what you're knowing about where you need to be. So let's have a proper look at this. So we've got Vesta, we've got the moon, we've got the Galactic Centre. Now, so you may well find that you're questioning, where do I need to be? What's going on? How do I get that sense of security? How can I live without doubts about my behaviors? How can I live with more peace and security? How can I get sure that the peace I have is actually real peace? I guess we can't really ever answer that, but it's something we can develop in ourselves and develop the habits for it. Now, the Galactic Centre here in the first is really saying you are a divine being. You are made of source. You are made of the stars. You are made of it all. it is there to say, whatever you're worried about in terms of your security, you are a divine being. You are a divine creator. You have God energy. And you're meant to feel it. So, that's quite a strong message to get, from the center of the universe. Okay, to be fair, I have just imagined that voice, but that's what I imagine that center would be saying to you right now is you are a creative being. You are a creator, and you actually belong to the divine, not to a home. It's not to say you don't deserve to have a home, by the way. Just to clarify that, I'd be up in arms with that. Now, Vesta is over here, and Vesta is your truth about what you know to be true and what is right in your body. So it also feels like there's a sense of belonging in truth to the partners around you. So, as I said that, I felt into it, and what I felt was, you feel like you belong to the people in your life. You feel like the truth is you belong to somebody or people or a group or a community. And in that sense of belonging that's outside of yourself, that is then creating or generating the need to have a solid home experience so that you can feel home and grounded. But in actual fact, the groundedness comes from recognizing your divinity. And so when you're identifying with the homely belonging feeling that you get from the people in your life, it's actually taking you away from the truth of your own divinity. I didn't see that one coming, I have to say. It's like come through me while I was like reading this. And then the moon in the sign of Cancer in the 8th is also showing that your emotionalism about the changes of life that you're going through, and the emotionalism at the time of this Cazimi to do with other people's values that they push on you or that you feel are being pushed on you, is also detracting from that sense of the home that you know to be true, or that security that you could have for yourself. But actually, the Galactic Centre is saying you are already home. And as you experience it from this perspective, this falls into place. And then you realize, yeah, it's nice to have friends and it's great to have relationships. It's fantastic to have a partner that loves you, etc., and to have all the right pieces in place. But when you feel that sense of belonging and put that as you are home, that's the kind of, that's like the 3D reality. We belong to people. In fact, if you were to supersize it to a galactic understanding, you would say, yes, I'm home because these people are me. That would be the other version of it, so seeing the actual spiritual connection between the people in your life and you would be the other way of saying, I am God, because when you feel absolutely connected and the people in your life, you can see the divinity in them. You can therefore see the divinity in yourself. So there's a few different ways of looking at it, but the more you see the divinity in you and in others, the more at home you'll feel. So I hope that's helpful in giving you this sense of what Neptune Cazimi might be talking to you about, and helping you to work through and helping you get rid of the self-sabotage. Whatever beliefs are triggering that, they are absolutely workable on this time. So it's 14 hours. All the details are below. I hope that's helpful to you. Lots of love. Okay, so Capricorn ascendant, how are you right now? So I'm looking at the Cazimi, the Neptune Cazimi that's happening on the 17th of March. It's a 14-hour event, but we have been all feeling the energies of it building, and then we'll have the event, and then we will be experiencing the after effects of this. This reading is kind of talking about that event and how you might choose to use the energies, but also talking a little bit about the energy of Neptune playing out in your chart anyway, and the longer term prognosis for that, and what that might mean. So in this, and if you want to know anything about the Cazimi, earlier in the video, I talk about the coding of the Cazimi, the actual chart, and also all the times of where we were, like from the 1st of March, we've been under the beams of the sun. So Neptune hasn't been very strong. Our intuition hasn't been very strong. Our sense of kind of knowing, intuitive knowing, has been kind of down. Then from the 9th, we've been combust, or Neptune's being combust. On the 17th, we've got the Cazimi. Then thereafter, we go combust and then under the beams. And so by the 2nd of April, we should be back to our normal intuitive strength, to the degree that you normally use that. It's a time when a lot of people have been quite tired and worn out, actually. So I really do see that this Cazimi is giving us an opportunity to tune in and really examine a different, to have a real deeper look at what is going on in our life that's going to really help us move on. Now, this particular Cazimi in your chart is showing up in your 3rd house. And the 3rd house is very much about the community you're from. It's also very much about your siblings, and your early environment, your local environment, and what you know to be true, like what you know about your life, and all the sort of fundamental foundational learnings. So I really do see this as a very sort of social place where we're interacting with each other. Now, I've also put in the moon at 0 degrees in the sign of Cancer, which is in a square at the exact time of the Cazimi. I've also put in Vesta, which is at 26 degrees in the sign of Gemini, which is also in a square to Neptune Cazimi. And I've also put in the Galactic Centre, which is the center of the known universe. If what we've been told about that is true, who knows? But the Galactic Center is something I don't normally put in charts. It's more if somebody asks. And very soon I'm going to be doing an in-depth deep dive with a good friend, Alexandra Jowett from Jupiter Returns, massively amazing astrologer. And, we are going to explore the square between Neptune and the Galactic Center at some point in the near future, and looking forward to that. But I am going to pay a bit of attention to it today, but just not loads. But the Galactic Center, if you think it's the source of everything, where all life has come from, if that is the model that works for you, but essentially it represents the voice of divinity, or the voice of God, or the energy of God, or creation. It's like a creation point. So, in terms of understanding this Cazimi, it is in a T-square with the voice of creation, and also with the truth that you have created for yourself, the truth that you know to be true, and also feel emotional about. And so the Neptune Cazimi is kind of nestled in a T-square between these two. So let's see how these are going to play out, and see if we can get a clearer message for you about how this could open up your life somehow and make it work much more magnificently. So in terms of what you know to be true right now, and where your truth really currently is in the kind of purity, actually, of having quite a clear and clean life. There's something quite reassuring about knowing that the life that you are living right now is clean and clear and understood. There's a real sort of passion in keeping it all sort of virginal and just kind of pure. I think pure really, really like captures that energy. So I think whether your life already feels pure enough, or if you're wanting to purify it, that definitely feels like something that's going on for you. Now, in terms of purifying it, it also feels like there's an emotional reason to purify your life. Like, I don't know if someone around you is a bit poorly, or if someone around you is putting pressure on you to feel purer. But it feels like it's not something that's just coming from you, but coming from a sort of co-creation. Your need for purity is also related to your love and passion and sensitivity about other people, which is kind of interesting to consider. And then we've got the voice of God, or the voice of divine, the divinity over here, which is, in your chart, in terms of your chart, it's in like the place of everything disappearing into oblivion. It's the perfect place for the Galactic Center, actually, because if you think this is representing, the birthing of your life, the ascendant is kind of your birth. And then if you go all the way around, this is kind of representing your death, or your re-emergence into everything, like your re-emergence into source. to have the voice of creation really close to that point is quite deep. So, you know, the voice of divinity is almost in your blind spot. I mean, it's something you can't quite perceive, and yet it's there. You know, it's there in everyone's chart somewhere. But for you, it's showing up in a place of real mystery. It's a real kind of wrench to get you there, actually. So, what would the voice of divinity say to you? Most likely that, in fact, you are part of all that is, rather than you are the person that you see. What I think is going on here, you know, seeing that your source of divinity is actually kind of outside of yourself. It's almost outside of your body. Maybe the message is that the entirety of you is much bigger than just your body and your life. The entirety of who you really are is much more magnificent. So we've got the truth of you feeling like you're getting your life pure and clean and simple, and there's the emotional pull of other people helping you do that. And yet there's this other reality that actually your life is actually the smallest, tiniest part of the divinity that you are, and actually that you are part of something so much more magnificent. And if you could only see it, you would almost tremble. You'd be so surprised. It would, you know, you'd be like kind of blown off your feet a little bit. Now, the Neptune Cazimi in the third is maybe where you might get some sense of how this is going to play out. So the third is, you know, your sociability, how you're communicating within your community, the people, the siblings, the people you're meeting with, the people you're emailing and chatting with. It's your local context. It's interesting because, you know, I'm talking about a local context whilst also saying you're a magnificent being from somewhere so much bigger and more vast than you can even possibly imagine. And yet here, the Neptune Cazimi is opening up in your locality. So, you know, for me, if I was in your shoes, Capricorn ascendant, you know, I've been advising most people to check in and tune in with themselves. But actually, I think I would get tuned into your local environment and use this Cazimi time to get tuned into the people that you spend a lot of time with, you know, to have fun with friends and to have fun on the periphery of this organized and pure life that you're creating for yourself. You know, come back into the community a little bit and you'll get a much bigger sense that you are part of something much bigger than your home, much bigger than your home and immediate relationships. And actually, when you're in your community and feeling like you're belonging there and feeling like you're spreading out a little bit more, it's almost like a spiritual awakening for you. It's that feeling of connection that is spreading from person to person to person to person, where you feel connected and are feeling also that sense of purpose for being. Now, obviously, there's a much bigger truth behind that you are absolutely part of everything. But I would say this Neptune Cazimi is enough to set that awakening in process and to really help you feel so much more than you already are. So anyway, I hope that reading was helpful for you. Don't be dismayed if you feel a little bit sort of discombobulated and a little bit tired and fuzzy headed over the rest of March. You know, as Neptune is coming out of this combust and under the beams position, we've also got so many other things going on with the new season, the eclipse season about to start on the 25th of March. Also, you know, the North Node and Chiron coming out of their conjunction, and also Jupiter and Uranus coming into their conjunction. There's a hell of a lot of stuff going on. So, you know, just relax and enjoy life from a more communal perspective, and I really think that will help you to feel refreshed and renewed. So there you go. I hope that was helpful to you. Lots of love, and catch you another time. Okay, Aquarius ascendant then. So how am I seeing this Neptune Cazimi working for you? Well, this reading is really about examining the Neptune Cazimi with its kind of aspects that are playing into it. So the Cazimi is taking place over a 14-hour period on the 17th of March. However, this talk, Neptune and this point here, the Galactic Centre, they are going to be in their positions for many, many more months or years, even in the position of the Galactic Centre. These are stationary really for now, but the moon in Cancer and Vesta in the sign of Gemini, they are kind of moving. So the reading I'm giving here, the forecast I'm giving in terms of how you might want to use the Neptune Cazimi is not just about the Cazimi itself, but more about the overall picture that you're learning and evolving and growing through. So I hope that's helpful. So just to recap, if you want to know anything about the Cazimi itself in terms of its astrology, in terms of the themes of Neptune, in terms of why this one's quite important, then please do check in with the earlier part of the show where I detail that in part 1. I also give the dates of when Neptune was under the beams, combust, etc. So if you wanted to check that out, you could do in your own time zone. Anyway, let's just dive in. So where this is showing up for you, of course, this is showing up in a place of receivership. So having Neptune going through your second house since 2011 will have created quite a lot of doubts in terms of what you can earn, how you're earning it, and how useful you are. Now, if you're lucky and quite magical person, hopefully by this point in the game of Neptune being in this position in the sign of Pisces, you'd have got a lot of faith and trust in yourself and kind of learnt to relax into the feeling of not worrying about whether you have anything, because life has this funny way of providing for you anyway, especially when you're quite magical about it and quite relaxed. So if you're there, that's great. However, I imagine that for a lot of people, the challenge of, providing for yourself and having enough is probably quite real, because it is for most people. Now, the real key here with Neptune is receivership. How happy are you to receive? Not just because you've created something and you're taking money, but how happy are you to receive things just in general? If someone pays you a compliment, if somebody loans you something or gives you something out of the blue, how comfortable are you with receiving? Because to the extent that you're happy to receive, I think things will go really, really well. And every time you close down on receiving, and here's the message, actually, because the Galactic Centre is like the word of God or the divine source that could be speaking through me right now to you in your forecast. But, the divine, where is divinity in your chart? Well, it's from the perspective of everybody is looked after. Everybody, all brothers and sisters, all living beings are looked after. All living beings are of God or of divine energy. All living beings will be looked after when they are in connection, when they know themselves, when they know that they are part of something much greater. The thing that is much greater, if they're tuned into it, it kind of feeds back into you. What you need comes back to you. If you're aware of how the law of attraction works, which I think the 11th house is very much about the law of attraction. As you get used to the laws that when we're connected and we trust in the creator or trust in the energy of creation, like the energy of created things comes to us. What we need and what we are calling for at some level is received. So I'm not explaining it very well, but what I see is that, there is this constant, almost like a constant vibration into your energy fields to say, everything is there for you. You just have to ask. Everything is there for you. You just need to receive. Now, if you can't receive, the chances are you're not asking very well. And if you're asking, but then not receiving it or not, like when you ask for something, it's important that you just say, look, this is what I need right now. And this is what would bring me joy. That's a better way of asking. This is what would bring me joy. I'd love to have more of this in my life, and showing it appreciation before it shows up. And then it magically appears, And the more you trust in it, the easier it gets. So I really think this Neptune Cazimi is a really powerful one for you, because you could use this to start manifesting what you need in your life, and start playing with it. And, you know, it might be that you just open up to it so much more and spend the day watching loads of stuff or listening to Abraham Hicks on downloads or whatever, you know, and getting really clear about how to manifest. Or it might be that you tune in, or you read the Bible if that's your thing, or, you know, the Course in Miracles if that's your thing, or whatever it is that is your thing. Whatever is your thing is the thing that needs to come through, and you trust it. So, you know, whatever you are believing in, trust in it, and it will supply what you need. Now, what is going on around that is a Vesta in the fifth. The truth that you're holding right now is that you have to create. You know, so you're holding this vibration. I have to create. And I love creating, and it's great. I love creating. And where you're emotional at the moment is I have to work, and I have to organize things. And I have to, and you're getting kind of emotional about it. So there is this feeling that you have to do something to be able to live a life that's comfortable. And what I'm here to challenge you with today is that how we've got it in this kind of mainstream world that we have to work to earn a living. And if we don't do this, this won't happen. And it has to be done in this order or else it won't work. That's not the truth. It looks like it. And a lot of people hold that it is the truth. So it does appear that that is the way. But there are also lots of people that have learned that, you know, when they create from a place of joy rather than obligation, that things flow much faster and in a much better way. And when you're creating for joy and you're asking for what you need, or the vibration of how you want to feel, rather than I want a 4-bedroom house, you know, in this part of the world, and this experience, when you like kind of describe what you're looking for and then are expecting it to show up, it never quite happens. But if you were to say, I want to live in a house that I feel absolutely resonates with me, and I love the feeling of it, and I feel alive when I get up in that house, then it's really easy for you to, you know, like the life will give you what it thinks is right for you. And in my experience, life seems to know better than I do. And I don't know if you've experienced that yourself, but I think this particular Cazimi is there to help you get really co-creative, really create what you need for yourself. So if I was in your shoes tomorrow, I would just get a massive pad out, a writing pad, and pens, colors if you want to color it in, painting, whatever, and think about how you want to feel in your life. And if you can connect to joy and feel good, and just think what would bring me the most amount of joy, because this 5th house is all about joy, and this 2nd house is all about receiving and having resources, and this 11th house is all about the sort of divine creative field, the co-creative field. I would absolutely just concentrate on how I want to feel, map it out, draw it out, dance it out, sing it out, whatever you want to do, write a song about it, go for a walk and think about it and generate that feeling and see what happens, because this 14-hour period is really quite magical for you guys. And also, you know, you've got Pluto in your first, and Pluto here is really saying your life is about to transform. So get with that program. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful for you in terms of navigating this special moment in time. And yeah, stay in touch. Lots of love. Okay, so I am now going to have a look at the last sign now, Pisces. I have to say, when I get to this sign, I'm always quite exhausted. However, I also... And this is because I've got a bit of Pisces going on in me as well, because we do like to feel a bit guilty sometimes, and we do put ourselves through the emotional ringer. I realise that by the time I get here, I've had a couple of breaks, and I've had 11 other signs to kind of perfect the process that I'm going through. So I always think that by the time I get to you, even though you're the last sign and I'm a bit knackered, you actually get so much more out of me than the first signs. And it's with some guilt that I say that, because I really do feel like the first 3 signs kind of pay the price of being first. So anyway, here's to you guys. Yay. So everyone with Pisces ascendant that's watching this right now, this is really your thing, okay? Because Neptune Cazimi, it's one of your ruling planets. It's in your first house. It's a very, very strong moment in time. It's 14 hours from start to finish. On the 17th of March 2024. And if you want to know the exact times of when it starts and finishes, if you go back into part 1, you'll see how I've worked out the timing across different time zones. I've also, recorded quite a bit about Neptune, what the quality of Neptune is in your chart, etc., and lots of other sort of Neptune gifts, which might help to give a greater context for what this is. But anyway, essentially, what I want you to know, if I could be so bold, is that the whole Cazimi process isn't just here it is and then it's gone. Leading up to it, Neptune gets closer to the sun gets closer to Neptune, and the sun starts to blind out Neptune somewhat. It gets stronger and stronger, and Neptune gets weaker and weaker, or appears to. It's less easy to perceive him. And so that's been happening since the 1st of March. And, I think that's one of the reasons why so many people are really quite tired at the moment, because Neptune really does bring out tiredness and confusion and fogginess and, a muzzy head. It's all kind of very much Neptunian things at a negative kind of reflection. Negative Neptune is what we're sort of experiencing at the moment. We're not so clear about things. But then all of a sudden, the sun is coming behind Neptune or in front of, they're connecting, and it's almost as if we can really hear Neptune, like he's really, really properly heard and understood. And then after the Cazimi, the 14 hours, then the sun comes back into a dominant position again. And then it's like, oh, okay, we've got another, couple of weeks of feeling a little bit fuzzy again and a little bit tired, a little bit not quite sure. Anyway, I digress. During this 14-hour period, we've got this moment in time that just feels really quite special. And given that he's one of your rulers, this is especially important to you. So what is going on with this? Well, I've picked out 3 things to work with Neptune, because I think, it's always much more dynamic when we're examining something against something else. And so we've got Vesta, who is in a square with Neptune. Vesta is the goddess of our truth and integrity, the truth that we physically feel, that we know is really spot on for us. We've got the moon at 0 degrees in Cancer, also in a square to Neptune Cazimi, in the sign of Cancer, showing up in your 5th house. And then I've also put in the Galactic Centre at 27 degrees Sag. Now, I'm going to hold my hand up and say, I don't often put the Galactic Centre into anything, unless I'm called to, but, it rarely comes up for me. But my good friend, who is actually a Pisces, Alexandra Jowett, who's an amazing astrologer from Jupiter Returns, not from Jupiter, but that's her name, Jupiter Returns. We're going to do a show, at some point this year about the Galactic Centre and Neptune square. They're in this kind of square position for quite some time. So there's no rush. And we will talk a lot more about it, and I think it will be really helpful. So this is just a little mention about the Galactic Centre, because I do know it's in a square, and I've put it in to represent the voice of God, or the source of all that is. Like if we could hear the voice of God, or our creator, or whatever you want to call source, so many different words for it, what would it be saying to you? How would it be resolving your life, and how does that play into the Cazimi? So, where should I start? Okay, so I'm deep diving now. So the Cazimi is showing up in your 1st house, which is all about your identity and your body, and that sense of certainty and knowing who you are. Now, having Neptune going through this area of your chart has probably created over, a long time, the last 12 years or so, probably quite a few questions for you in terms and doubts in terms of who you are, your personality, you know, what you mean to the world. And also how you feel in your body. You know, Neptune coming into anything bodily is usually quite disturbing, because Neptune creates a disruption in our energy fields, you know, unless we can get really down with the divine feeling that Neptune can create, and we can live really quite cleanly. Neptune can create some difficulties, you know, where we feel depressed or lowered in our emotional, spiritual health. It can manifest into all sorts of different nasty and horrible sort of energetic ills and dis-eases. You know, so I'm, you know, I've got quite a lot of Pisces in me and really strong, prominent Neptune. And so for me, you know, when I've gone through periods of doubting myself, for instance, you know, I've had sort of fibromyalgia type things and ME, chronic fatigue syndrome type stuff. So, you know, Neptune going through this area of your chart may well have created these sort of it's sort of difficult to diagnose ailments, or a feeling that you're not quite strong in your body. Now, you are coming to the end of this time, because, you know, Neptune's going to sod off soon and go into the sign of Aries. And that's going to really help you in terms of your health. I put that in poignantly because wherever he goes, he's creating a little bit of confusion. So he will be like moving on and creating a different kind of confusion. But actually, if you get straight in your body and straight in yourself and get real clarity about who you are and how you are in your body, it almost doesn't matter about the confusion he creates in all of these subsequent places, because you're probably not going to be alive by the time it gets around here, because he's got a really long orbit, like 169 years or so. So, you know, you're only going to be going through like maybe these 3 or 4, 5 maybe. But yeah, he is, you know, if you get right in yourself, everything else falls into place. You know, it all hinges on how you feel in yourself. So having Neptune highlighting this part of your chart is significant. And this Cazimi could open up like a looking glass or a crystal ball for you to peer through the veils of reality about what is holding back your body, or what is holding back your personality or your persona that needs to be understood. You know, where's that clarity that you're looking for? You know, is it the big question, who am I? This is such a creative place to have it, I have to say, this Cazimi. And of course, the Galactic Centre is showing up in your 10th, another angular house, an important house, and Vesta's in your 4th. So what's Vesta saying? So Vesta is the truth that you know to be, you know, this is absolutely what I know and feel. And also where you're trying to create purity. So what's happening here is Vesta's like creating this truth and purity of trying to cleanse your home, or trying to cleanse your family and home, or your house that you actually live in. You know, Vesta speaks the truth, but she's quite pure and kind of virginal. So I think probably how these two are playing together is what you're trying to do at home and for your family is actually what you need to do for yourself. So if you're cleansing, deep cleaning, spring cleaning your home and saying, well, if I make this feel pure, I'm going to feel so much better, that's the answer. It's not. I don't disagree. It will make you feel better for sure. But actually what you need to do is go back to basics and go back to you. Even if it means your house has to stay a tip for a bit longer, or it doesn't get completely spring cleaned. You know, actually what you're really wanting to spring clean is here. And this is where all of what you need, all of the treasure that's going to give you the answer you need to help you, this is where it all lives. So, yeah, pretty deep. The Cazimi is there to show you what is missing from what you need to know to solve your health, or to solve your ideas of identity, like who you are. And the Galactic Centre, which is showing up here in the 10th house. Interesting, it's the 10th house. The 10th house is about authority. It's about your own authority, how you show up in the world, your career, how important you are, your status, how much money you've got, how much you're appreciated, what your reputation's like. it's all good stuff. But the voice of God, if it was going to talk to you about anything right now, it would say, why are you trying to be up here? Why are you trying to be something up here? Because actually, you just need to be something here. And actually, who you are is already the authority. You don't need to look for authority outside of yourself or develop it outside of yourself. You just need to be yourself. How can you be more of yourself right now? Absolutely. How can you be more of yourself right now? So that's the energy that I get. So it's interesting. So the Neptune Cazimi, I think, is bringing you back into yourself so you can see everything that's playing into it, all the self-sabotage, all the delusions that you might be playing, because we all do those. We all lie to ourselves. And it's saying, don't try and be pure at home or get that all sorted, because that's just a distraction. What is important is here. And don't be distracted by having more importance and developing on this. This is where you need to focus on yourself. Answer that question, why am I here? So if I was in your shoes tomorrow during the Cazimi, and remember, these two are still in this position for quite some time. So, this can be an ongoing thing you can consider, but you'll get some breakthrough with this, I think, tomorrow. Sit with it. Brainstorm it, talk to yourself, interview yourself, record yourself talking, go for a walk and talk to yourself and record yourself on your phone, or chat to a mirror, light a candle, look at yourself, whatever works for you. But I think talking to yourself is a really good thing, because it's the first house, it's your voice and your ears that you're hearing it with, and it's personal, it's just you, not for anyone else. But ask yourself, why am I here? Who am I? And then just wait and see what voice comes into your head, or what images come up, or what you feel in your body. Notice what is going on in your body. And just be really, really aware and see that is the truth of what you need to do right now. So I hope that was helpful. And thank you so much for waiting all the time. But anyway, lots of love to you, and catch you in another forecast real soon. Lots of love. Bye for now. Okay, so just before I go any further, I just want to say I can't really do this. I mean, I could do this, and I probably still would do this if I wasn't supported. But do you know what? It makes it so much nicer to know that there are people that are supporting me to do these shows and that appreciate it. So thank you so much to everyone that does. And if you wanted to support me, you can do as well. There are details below. You can buy me a coffee, or join me on YouTube. But thank you to all of those wonderful people that have committed to doing that. I really appreciate you. So there's a couple more things I want to talk about. And one of them is, as I'm wrapping this up, I realized that this is a really shamanistic thing, so I didn't really mention it in the earlier part of the show, and I wish I had, and I don't really want to fanny around and post-produce it with lots of edits and stuff. So I'm going to say it here, and if you see it, you see it. If you don't, you don't. It's fine. But what occurs to me is this is a really shamanic process. This is a real sort of inside job. And I've had quite a few conversations with people in this time when Neptune's been under the beams, and also when Neptune's been combust. So I felt quite off, and I've checked in with lots of other people, lots of healers and stuff, and everyone's kind of reporting that. Everyone I've spoken to said, yeah, man, my energy fields aren't quite right. And now during this time, I've also noticed a couple of other themes are going on. So couple of about 10 or 12 days ago now, I was going for a walk, and I like to talk to myself, and sometimes I actually pointedly talk to my body, and I said to my body, hey, are you enjoying this walk? Bet you'd love it if we did this a lot more often. And my body talked back to me, and I heard it for the first time. Now, I do hear things from my body, but never actually physically in my ear, as if it's an actual person talking into my ears. So I heard the voice that said something like, dear child, why are you worried? And And I was really surprised. It was as if somebody was actually talking into my ear. So again, not as I usually experience it. And the voice was of a grandmother or a mother. It was like an older woman, wasn't very sort of defined, or I didn't recognize the voice. And yet at some level, I knew the voice was the truth. And so I started this conversation. I had this lovely conversation back and forth. And what I came to understand, this voice that I was talking to was the voice of the mother, not my mom or my grandmother or my great grandmother, or, you know, and I could go back. But it sounded and felt just like the voice of all mothers, the voice of the mother energy that is in the planet or the plane or wherever this is, you know, the energy that permeates through every single cell of every single living being, the intelligence that is at the source of life that I describe as the mother. And so that was an experience I had, and I've spoken to a few friends about it as well. And funnily enough, one of my friends who's a channel and has been an amazing channel for years, you know, she used to actually channel the energy that was called mum as well, or mother. And I'm sure lots of people can, probably Indigenous people as well, I'm sure lots of people have tuned into that frequency and have heard that frequency loud and clear, because boy, it was absolutely loud and clear. And it feels like there is a connection between me and mother now. Got some great insights, and I'll probably, you know, talk about them at some point. But I've also been chatting to friends who are quite shamanic and quite spiritual and tuned in and whatnot. And one of my good friends, literally a few days after, and she had totally forgotten about my experience of channeling the mother, was having a conversation with her husband, and then was tuning in and just kind of asking herself little random questions and just seeing what came up, and, you know, just not doing anything specific. And then all of a sudden she heard a voice and had a conversation with it, and it was the voice of dad, or the father. And so, and you know, I was talking to her about her experience, and her husband also felt it and heard it as well. So that was kind of unusual. What occurs to me right now is we are in a very strong psychic energetic that right now, and you know, like, people have also write to me quite a bit and share with me what's going on for them. You know, lots of people are having these deeply psychic channeled experiences. They're having these experiences whereby their knowledge is somehow all of a sudden just exponentially expanding. And I don't know why I didn't say it earlier, but it seemed really, really important. Lots of other coincidences are coming up, you know, because I had a homeopathic treatment with my family homeopath that I've been a client of for years and years. And way before, like 2 weeks before I spoke to the mother, we were talking about a remedy for me, and the remedy that came up was salt. It's literally sea salt, which and if you think of the ocean, and it's interesting, I'm talking about Neptune right now, by the way, but if you think of the ocean and the fact that the ocean is called la mer, or the sea is called la mer in French, and mer and Mary, like Maria, you know, Mother Mary, all of these names to do with the mother are also related to the sea. And so I really think the sea, the mum energy is really, really coming up. I'd totally forgotten about it. And on the day that actually, funnily enough, I heard the mum or spoke to the mum, I remembered that my homeopath had said something like, trust the mother. And I'd said, you know, internally to myself, oh, well, that was a load of crap. Nothing's happened. And then about an hour later, all of a sudden it's like, oh, hello, mum, you know. So yeah, there's a lot going on. You know, if it happens to me and it happens to other people, and then I hear more from other people, I think, okay, something is swelling up like a wave, like a Neptunian wave of psychic energy is coming up. I also had an amazing, I'm just going to put a shout out, Shamanic Journey with an amazing person called Whitney Mullings, and it was great because some of the themes that came up there were also corresponding to other things that have been going on. So, there's lots of different transformational experiences going on right now, and I think we should all just dive in. If it feels right, go with it. Really follow what's going on in your body. I really think that this Neptune, when it's under the beams or combust, I've come to experience it in a different way and to notice it. Normally when I'm channeling, I really feel it as a sound vibration and an image vibration, and it's not through my real eyes, it's not through my real ears. And I feel something in my body, but I'm not really feeling it in my body. I get a sensation of it. So, and I think that this is called like clairvoyance or clairaudience. Like clair in French is light. So it's light seeing, light hearing, light feeling, where you're feeling it, but not in your physical body. But with this combust and under the beams, it feels like the reality is actually physically in your body. And I think that's why so many of us have been tired. So, I hope that's useful. So if you're experiencing things in your body, thank yourself, forgive yourself, give yourself some compassion, really notice the joy that comes up from these experiences. I really feel that right now we are communing at a much deeper level than we have in a really long time. And I think this is quite exciting. So there you go. So that's, I think, my final word really on this is we are all here at this point in time really purposefully. It really feels like we're all meant to be here. We're all part of this journey. We're all part of this collective experience. So thank you for being here with me. And I hope to connect with you again real soon. Keep being you, and keep being in joy. Lots of love to you. Bye for now.